Broken Bond. Copyright 2025 by Nikki Saxton. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written permission of the publisher, except as permitted by U.S. copyright law. The story, all names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. No identification with actual persons, living or deceased, places, buildings, and products is intended or should be inferred. Chapter 1. Food or Board Isa. The motel was long past pretending to offer clean towels, safety, or dignity. It reeked of mold and despair, the kind of place even bugs checked out of. Take the man huddled beneath the rusted fire escape. A chipped clay pipe jutted from the gap where his front teeth should have been, and thick orange fumes rose from the bowl. It curled and writhed in the stagnant air, giving everyone a taste of the witch root he was smoking. The sharp, almost peppery scent hit me head-on from 10 feet away, a phantom burn prickling the back of my throat. Then there was the couple clinging to the doorway of a unit, their eyes glazed with something beyond sleep. Their voices clawed at the humid night, rising in jagged shrieks and then receding into mumbled, resentful undertones, a pull and release of a dark ocean wave. Around the cracked parking lot, a handful of men and women, draped in scraps of clothing, stood in groups of 2s and 3s or sat on the curb, gaunt faces illuminated by the green neon of the motel sign. When a conveyance passed by, their gazes snapped toward it with a desperate, almost predatory hunger. A heavy shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness between 2 parked cars and brushed past me, the rough fabric of its unseen form sending a shiver of unease down my spine. Too close. I edged towards the halo of the street lamp on the corner, my fingers instinctively tightening around the gold Zilden in my pocket, the only coin I had left. A familiar tightness clenched in my chest, a knot of anxiety that didn't hesitate to voice its opinion. "You're out of time, Isa. You can't keep doing this." The whisper had been chasing me for days, a cold tendril snaking around my heart. All I could to allay it was tally up my dwindling choices. 1. Brave the greasy spoon across the street, the aroma of burnt coffee and frying onions already clinging to the night air, and then curl up on a bench, the damp chill seeping into my bones until dawn. Or 2. Surrender a gold Zilden for a single night at the festering wound of a motel. The thought of a scalding shower sent a phantom warmth across my grime-coated skin. A warm bed? Maybe. Though the imagined feel of tiny legs skittering across threadbare sheets and the itch of unseen bites made my stomach churn. Or, the riskiest gamble of all, offer my blood to a vampire for safe passage. A shiver that had nothing to do with the cool night air traced its way down my spine. The metallic tang of spilled blood, a memory from my first week on the run, flooded my mind. I'd been huddled in a stinking alleyway, half asleep with a rough brick digging into my cheek, when a wet, tearing sound had ripped through the quiet. I'd jolted awake to the horrifying sight of a vampire, its fangs buried deep into a limp human's neck, the coppery scent thick and sickening. I'd scrambled to my feet and fled, adrenaline and a surge of protective magic propelling me. After 3 months in this realm, I didn't have much magic left. My shoulders sagged. I sank onto the curb, elbows to knees, head in my hands. Fingers curled into my hair as if holding myself together could stop everything else from unraveling. Why couldn't the world grant safe passage for tired girls running out of places to hide, instead of swallowing them whole with a wet, hungry gulp?
Always keep your power hidden until you're sure of your surroundings,
my father told me. He taught protection like it was a prophecy, especially after what happened to my mother. A bitter taste, sharper than a metal spike, flooded my mouth. I should have listened better, etched his instructions onto my soul instead of letting them fade like a half-remembered dream. The one time, the single careless instant, I'd let the ever-present tension in my shoulders ease. A hollow dread, cold and heavy as river stones, pulsed in my chest, each beat echoing the sickening lurch in my stomach at the memory of what happened the week before. The convenience store coffee had clung to my fingers as I'd set my satchel down to adjust the lid. One moment it was there against my leg, and then, poof. A blur of black fabric, the rasp of hurried breath too close, and a brutal shove that sent the scalding liquid splashing across my jeans. The mugger, a faceless shadow in the dim fluorescent light, had snatched the bag with a guttural grunt and vanished into the night. The acrid smell of cheap coffee had mingled with the metallic tang of shame that coated my tongue. Gone. My pride, yes, but something far more precious, too. My necklace. It wasn't just a trinket, a pretty piece of metal. It was the last tangible link to the girl I used to be. The pendant held a sliver of my very essence, a piece carved from the raw heart of my magic. It hummed when I was near, and when my fingers brushed against its surface, the subtle vibration would quiet. Useless bauble to the grubby hands that had stolen it, but for me, catastrophic. My spells unraveled faster. Shields thinned. I became more smoke than flame, a wisp threatening to dissolve into the stale air. And the only way to reignite that fire, to truly burn again without it? Love. Not lust, not temporary heat or whispered promises in the dark. The real kind, the one that anchors, builds, refuses to let go. Not that I'd ever experienced it. Not in the century that I'd been alive. In human years, I looked around 25. Time moved differently in my realm, 4 times as slow, which meant generations flashed by like lightning while I stayed mostly unchanged. And in all that drawn-out time, love hadn't so much as brushed against my skin. Gods, would it ever? Not likely in this delightful locale, the Eastern Vampire District, where charm goes to die. Used to mountains that scraped the sky, and forests so thick you could lose your own shadow. The air here tasted like someone had licked a battery and then exhaled in my face. Metallic, heavy, with a delightful undercurrent of copper that clung to my teeth. Then there was that damn persistent hum of vampire magic that made my skin feel as if I'd walked through a spider web made of static. That was their wards. They weren't meant to keep me out, not since the treaty, but they weren't designed to welcome me either. Around me, the district maintained a particular rhythm. Vampires glided with unhurried grace along the shadows, while humans and lesser supernaturals scurried with practiced caution, heads down, moving with a goal in mind. The buildings themselves seemed to lean inward, all sharp angles and few windows, designed for creatures who preferred darkness. Everything was deliberately quieter here. Sound absorbed by specialized enchantments that dampened noise, broken only by bursts of laughter or music from nearby bars. A pair of werewolves spilled from a music-thrumming doorway beside the motel. Their eyes locked on me. The taller one licked his lips hungrily, nudging his buddy in the side. If I don't get off the street soon, I'll get singled out again. With a practiced move, I tugged the worn hood of my jacket higher, the coarse fabric scratching against my neck as it swallowed my dark curls. Shoulders square, I crossed the road, headed toward a diner, silently hoping whatever I could buy with my last coin would taste better than the helplessness sitting heavy in my throat. Inside, the diner was warm, but it was trying too hard to still be open. With red booths bleached by sunlight, and a flickering pie sign that had probably been enchanted in another decade, the aroma consisted of grease, pepper, and something that passed for coffee. I passed the dessert case. Lemon meringue, chocolate cream, apple pie thick with cinnamon. My stomach twisted, loud, impatient, hungry in too many ways. It would have to wait. "Bathroom?" I asked. The banshee behind the counter didn't look up, just scribbled something in a puzzle book and pointed toward the back. I walked the sticky hallway, footsteps muffled by old linoleum, and the air altered before I saw him. Magic pulled tight, coiling like a snake in the dark. Power, cold and old. My skin prickled. He wore a suit that whispered wealth and tailored danger. Shoes too clean for this side of the district. He glanced at me and something crackled. My breath caught, heart hitching in my chest from something far more dangerous than fear. Desire. The heat of it straightened my spine from its borrowed hunch. His scent was maddening, cedar wood and dark spice, not cologne, just him. Vampire. Ancient, timeless, dangerous to my kind. At least before the treaty, some say they still are. Our gazes met. His lingered for a pinch too long.
Hi,
He said. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. But God's help me, I felt him. The air shimmered around me as I walked, magic sparking low in my gut, reacting to his. I didn't let myself turn around. But I knew he was still watching. Chapter 2. The Dare, Etan. We were at Lenny's diner, partly for the pie. The place was a dive. The windows didn't have a UV filter, so the booths peeled off skin in the summer, even at night. The staff moved like they'd been petrified. The coffee likely brewed in a cursed cauldron. But the apple pie? Utopia in a crust, warm, flaky, cinnamon sweet with just enough bite to make you think life wasn't entirely a dumpster fire. The other part, a truth I'd swallow glass before admitting aloud, was the need for a break. A reprieve from the pressure of empire building and the lingering sting of my infamous humiliation. When I told them I needed a little dessert therapy, my best friends, shields in the storm and blades in the fray, had insisted on coming. Scott Wales, my CFO, nursed his beer, the condensation beating on the glass like penance. Ex-celestial, star-born tracker, and innately strategic, he was too damn calm for a man whose world had burned to ash. He worked for me at Sinclair Strategies, a firm built to untangle supernatural messes before they bled into open war. We navigated court treaties, cross-realm diplomacy, and legacy disputes for everyone from ancient vampires to volatile fae. Old money with bloody secrets? They usually found our door. Scott was my anchor. He favored sweaters, khaki, and a razor-sharp part in his hair. He quietly, relentlessly, and selflessly checked my worst impulses. Eddie, slumped beside me, was his antithesis. All wolf, all instinct. Trouble wore him like a second skin, blonde waves, a well-worn leather jacket, and a jawline carved by the gods in a mood. Once a prodigy at the Academy's art program, he'd conjured charcoal sketches, oil paintings, murals that could make even stoic fae weep, until his muse bolted with a 2-bit necro-jazz player. Eddie hadn't touched a brush since, claiming he was waiting for the next beautiful disaster. These days, he was my muscle in high-stakes meetings. We'd forged our bond at New Haven's Academy for the Ascended, a boarding school for the supernatural elite, tucked into a pocket dimension of floating towers, cursed libraries, and duel rings that bled truth from liars. We three were the outliers, nearly expelled thrice for giving the middle finger to the Academy rules. Too wild, too angry, too burdened, the headmaster had declared to our families once. We all carried baggage that refused to be checked. Mine was the latest and arguably the most public fiasco. 3 months ago, I'd stood in my grandmother's study, the scent of dying candle wax thick in the air, staring at an empty ritual circle. Midnight had passed, the ancient blood scroll bearing signatures, mine and my bondmates, curling at the edges. 30 high-ranking diplomats had witnessed my humiliation with low, murmuring whispers. I also had a living memento of that depressing night. A silvery pattern of interrupted magic that sometimes burned when I thought about the circumstances too hard.
She really ghosted you, huh?
Eddie asked, his fork swirling through a cloud of whipped cream.
The arranged Bond chick really hit the eject button before the blood seal even dried?
I huffed, the sound laced with lingering annoyance. A ghost of a smile touched the corner of Scott's lips.
You two are evil.
I stared into my coffee, wondering if it held the secrets to life's great mysteries.
Correct.
Scott said.
But we're evil folk who care.
I came for pie and sin,
Eddie said with a smirk.
not your tragic vampire tale of woe.
I came for closure.
I muttered.
Still waiting.
My phone buzzed again. The 8th message from my grandmother's secretary asking when I could sit down for a meeting to formulate a plan to look for my missing bondmate. I silenced it. When I had the answers, I'd get in touch. Until then, I didn't want to be bothered.
You should be glad she bailed.
Eddie said, smacking his lips like an untrained gremlin.
She probably didn't have anything up top. Might have been pretty, though. The star-crossed ones usually are.
That was Eddie. Zero tact, all loyalty. He'd punch the sun for you and then complain about the heat. I leaned back, staring at the last bite of my pie. It clung to the plate like something unwanted. Trying not to draw a comparison, I shifted in the booth and said,
To be honest, I'm not sure if I feel more sad or relieved.
Eddie perked up from his slouch.
Go on.
Sad because I spent months preparing,
I admitted, the words tasting bitter.
learning her customs, memorizing her family lineage, studying the proper bond magic. I even had this ridiculous idea that maybe we could build something real from the arrangement, something beyond politics.
I laughed, a hollow sound even to my ears.
Then again, I was relieved, because it was all a farce. She wasn't mine. I wasn't hers. It was all legacy strings. My grandmother wanted the match and I couldn't bring myself to say no.
My Gammy was eternally perfect, terrifyingly immortal. A vampire matriarch who believed in bloodlines, not love. She saw marriages as contracts, love as distraction, and my existence as leverage. Didn't matter, I owed her. The girl, however, was a ghost from the start. A sheltered noble with no photo, no scry profile, just a name on a blood scroll who never showed up for the ceremony.
Wish she would have told me to my face.
I muttered.
Makes you more tragic.
Eddie said, pointing his fork at me. The glob of pie in the tine slid off and splatted onto the table.
Females will eat that shit up when you tell them how spectacularly you got dumped.
Scott gave the smallest smile.
You should thank her.
Eddie added, scooping up the pie with his fingers.
Now you can do something wild. Date someone with no last name and even less patience.
He shoved the gob in his mouth, swallowing it whole.
Yeah,
I said, nudging my last bite around the plate. Scott looked up at me from peeling the label off his bottle.
You don't have to pretend it doesn't sting.
It wasn't just the rejection. Not really. It was the weight of what it meant. Centuries of doing everything right. Of carrying the Sinclair name like a title, ignoring the burden. And in the one moment where I could matter beyond myself, I'd lost before I could try. The bond marks flared beneath my shirt sleeve, a wound failing to close around a cut. I stood before the ache could hollow me out.
gonna hit the bathroom.
The perfect excuse to take a moment to reset, to breathe, to try not to feel like the guy everyone expected to be fine. I stared at my reflection in the water-stained mirror. What I saw was a soul-worn sight with dark smudges under the eyes. Not from age, from effort, from centuries of trying to be more than my legacy. After my parents died, it was my grandmother who raised me, who forged me into the Sinclair heir like it was both birthright and burden. She groomed me to wear the name like a crown of broken glass and a chain made of legacy. Every lesson, every choice, every correction was meant to sculpt me into the weapon she needed. And I let her. By the time she arranged the bond, I didn't fight. I was already frayed. I'd fought hard enough opening my own firm instead of submitting to the family's golden path into politics. The disappointment in her eyes when I turned down a seat in the inner ring told me everything I needed to know. About her expectations. About how deep the mold had been set. But that life? The courts? The pomp? The parade of whispers behind polished smiles? It made my canines ache. I'd never wanted the highest royal title. I didn't want to waste my eternity parsing hidden meanings in every sentence, or playing the kind of games that cost more than they ever gave. That preference alone was enough to start the quiet war between us. A standoff of stubbornness and suppressed fury that stretched on for decades. Eventually, I fell into line, let obligation blur into duty, and duty into silence. It was easier than fighting a battle I was never meant to win. And besides, I had Camille. She was supposed to make the bond easier to bear. Killer body. Smoke-slick voice. Fangs for days. Greedier than a dragon in heat. Everything about her was curated chaos, a distraction I told myself I wanted. She liked my name, my power, the illusion of control, but not the vampire behind it. I didn't have the royal pedigree she wanted, but I'd do in a pinch. We still had a casual thing. Nothing wrong with keeping a good coffin buddy, as the saying went. Especially one who knew the rules and never asked for more than I was willing to give. I rolled up my sleeve, examining the silvery half-formed runes that should have linked me to my bondmate. They'd begun to fade, but not enough. Magic like this needed resolution. The bond had been initiated but never completed, and that kind of interrupted magic could turn toxic. Already I felt it some nights, a hollow ache beneath my skin, where someone else's essence should have joined with mine.
Enough, Etan.
Done feeling sorry for myself, I rinsed my hands, washing the pity away with the dirt. Probably why fate decided to kick me in the teeth. The gods did love a good laugh. Stepping into the hallway, she came towards me in a blur of dark, tangled curls and worn denim. Her hoodie was up, head down. Something delicious swirled around me like moonlight caught in a snare. Too faint to place, but too tantalizing to ignore. Whatever spell she wore, it was good. I couldn't tell what she was, couldn't smell her, couldn't taste her magic. But old blood knows when something isn't quite what it seems. And that made me look harder. Heart-shaped face, doe brown eyes, deep enough to drown in. Flecks of silver embedded in those haunted depths. That mouth, soft and unsure and sharp all at once.
Hi,
I said, a plea for her to stop. She just kept going, like halting meant death and forward was the only option. But I felt it. The shift in the air, the hum beneath my skin, the pulse behind my canines. She didn't look back. But I watched her walk away. And for the first time in a long, long while, I wanted to follow. Chapter 3. Burnt Coffee and Bets, Issa. I locked the bathroom door behind me and leaned against it, chest tight, heart fluttering like I'd swallowed a potion I didn't remember making. What the hell was a vampire like him doing here? And why did I want a do-over? To rewind 10 seconds, lift my chin and meet his gaze and... Wait, who was I kidding? Those high on the food chain didn't stop for girls like me. We quiet, dutiful ones didn't get hellos. We didn't get anything. We just kept walking, and tried not to notice how empty it felt to never be seen. I splashed water on my face. The mirror, cracked down the middle, sliced my reflection in half. Fitting. The girl I used to be belonged in enchanted gardens and glass courts, a far cry from the girl I'd become. That one was someone who hadn't eaten in 2 days and had hardly any magic left. Freedom had a price. And it never failed to extract its due. My stomach growled, cramping with hunger. My hands trembled slightly. The ember of my magic, once bright enough to illuminate an entire council chamber, flickered precariously like the bathroom's dying light. They wrote stories about girls like me, but only after they turned to ash. I was determined not to become a statistic. So, I dried my hands, ignored the mirror's judgment, and stepped back into the scorched coffee and old grease ambiance of the diner. The plan? Pie. Coffee. A moment of warmth before deciding which brand of desperation to try next. I told myself I'd only stay long enough to warm up, but I didn't leave, not right away, because from the shadows of the hallway, I caught sight of Mr. Vampire again, now tucked into a booth with 2 other men. And maybe it was stupid, but I wanted to see who he laughed with, how he acted when the world wasn't watching, On closer inspection, he and his friends didn't look that much older than me by human standards. But their edges were sharper, worn. The kind of men life didn't just pass by, it carved into. Not in lines or wrinkles, but in memories. And though I smiled at their schoolboy laughter, it was the kind that tried to keep the ghosts at bay. Still, they were easy on the eyes, in very different, very dangerous ways. Mr. Vampire had the air of someone who never rushed and never needed to. Those eyes, winter dawn, pale gray with silver catching the light, missed nothing. His dark hair was just tousled enough to look effortless, and his face? Sculpted by some divine architect with a penchant for danger, high cheekbones, strong jaw, and lips that curved into the kind of smile that made you forget he was technically dead. Beside him sat a guy in a battered leather jacket with the jawline of a boxer and the grin of someone who definitely owned brass knuckles. Broad shoulders, restless energy, wolf, no doubt. The kind who picked fights to stay entertained, or warm. Across from them lounged the third, clean-cut, too calm for this crusty diner. White blonde hair, combed with surgical precision, eyes like glacial glass. The type who probably meditated by sorting spreadsheets. A celestial? Maybe. But if he was, he didn't belong in this realm. Too collected. Too sharp. Then I heard it. A life-altering proposal. Leather Jacket nudged Mr. Vampire with a look that said he was about to get him into trouble and loved the shit that followed.
Scott and I have decided you need to live a little, Etan.
Etan. My stomach dropped. No way. Couldn't be. The glance in the hallway hadn't been enough to light the bulb, but it blinded me at that moment. Etan, Sinclair. Of all the damn diners and all the damn territories, every realm's Scrynet had done a feature on him. The vampire heir who didn't just reject his legacy, he built his own empire just to spite it. Even in my realm, they whispered his name with a mix of envy and admiration. And then came the scandal. The one he was to marry vanished before the bond could be sealed. No one knew who she was, just that she walked away from a future most would have killed for. They said he wasn't the eye-hole, but stories always left something out.
I'm serious.
Leather Jacket said, grinning like a ghoul.
First female who talks to you, that's who you ask out. No picking, no takebacks, no excuses.
Etan gave a low, skeptical laugh.
What are we, younglings?
Tonight we're acting like it.
Sweater guy said, voice warm with mischief.
Which is why the prize is a whole gold mark. High stakes.
The banshee from the counter emerged from a door in the back, shooting me a look like I was one breath away from loitering. Buy something or get out, it said. I knew the drill. It wasn't my first magic circle. I hit the trail toward the counter before she could open her mouth. Banshee wails gave me the worst migraines.
First female.
Leather Jacket repeated, sloshing his beer.
You speak to no one, you wait. First one who talks to you. It's fate.
Etan gave a lazy mock salute.
Fine.
That was the exact second I walked by. He stood. We met, shoulder to chest, his breath warm and sweet, his body close. I stumbled a bit. Excuse me. He blinked at me. His mouth curved ever so slowly, canines sharp. I didn't return the look, hoping he would fulfill his dare with anyone other than me. The witch picking up an order, the ghoulish fry cook, even the banshee. Behind me, Leather Jacket hollered,
There's your girl. Don't chicken out, Sinclair.
Of course he followed. I felt it before I heard him. Dead as he was, his presence carried a temperature. I slid onto the farthest stool at the counter. Before I could even order, he was beside me.
Hi again.
He said, voice so smooth it slid on jagged rocks. What? I barked, keeping my eyes on the stained menu.
I'm Etan.
I know who you are. He tilted his head, amused.
I'm flattered.
I glared at him. Don't be. He arched a brow, ignoring the warning in my eyes.
How about a piece of pie?
I blinked. Is that a vampire pickup line? He grinned again, sharper this time.
It was a sincere question, not a come on. The apple is legendary. You should try some.
I nodded my head towards his companions, who sat eagerly watching our exchange. I don't take pity pie. He grinned once more, even sharper now.
It's not pity. It's a dare. I'm at least half serious.
Then you're still half joking. Try harder.
I'm pretty charming when I try.
Try harder than that. He laughed. And gods, it hit me. Not just sound, but heat. Like firelight brushing bare skin after too many nights in the cold. It reached places I'd long convinced myself were numb. Something in me flickered, stirred. In the hallway, I'd known what he was. Danger wrapped in a tailored coat and eyes that didn't miss a thing. He didn't need fangs to ruin someone. His voice, his presence, the way he wore his charm better than he wore his jacket was already undoing me, one breath at a time.
What's your name?
He asked. I hesitated. My full name would end this entire exchange on the spot. So, I gave him the safer half-truth. Issa.
Issa.
He repeated, letting it roll in his mouth. A whisper. A taste. His eyes swept over me. Quick, assessing, not unkind. A slow smile curved his mouth.
I'm guessing you don't say yes very often.
That's because I've learned better.
Ouch. So what's the magic word then?
I shrugged, not apologetic. More of a couldn't care less what you think kind of lift. There isn't one. I'm not the kind of girl you pick up on a dare. His expression shifted just a little.
Didn't mean it like that.
I tilted my head slightly, one eyebrow lifting in quiet challenge. Didn't you? His type always meant it, which made it sting more.
I'm not looking for a punchline, Issa.
Then maybe don't open with pie. Human slang had carried over into my realm. I was well versed in it. He lifted his hands in mock surrender.
Fair. No pie. How about coffee?
Every instinct I'd cultivated since running screamed at me to walk away. I'd spent months hiding from my former life, avoiding anyone connected to either the vampire or fae courts. I'd slept in abandoned human shelters and worked menial jobs just to stay off the magical grid. But there was something in the way he looked at me. A quiet kind of intensity that curled low in my belly and made me forget, for one reckless heartbeat, that I didn't trust anyone. Fine, I said, nudging the chipped mug closer. It had been a long time since someone waited for me to speak, like I was worth listening to. You can buy me a coffee, but I'm not sharing a booth. I didn't trust what might happen if his thigh pressed against mine, how things would ignite between us. Gods, that was way too easy to imagine.
No booth,
he said, fingers dragging through his hair in one fluid sweep, casual, effortless, unfairly hot.
Just caffeine.
He added, mouth tilting.
And conversation.
His tone curled under my skin, thick with the promise of something more. I shifted on the stool, crossing my legs, folding my arms. Casual, dismissive. But inside, a wildfire crackled, dangerous and stupid and so very tempting. After all, I should know better. Vampires didn't have to try to seduce. It was built into their bones. All that ancient magic soaked in charm, wielded with the ease of breath. Eden wasn't dangerous because of what he might do. He was dangerous because I could so easily let him. I straightened, forcing steel into my spine. And no pity either, I said, sharper than I intended. I needed to say it. Needed him to know I wasn't some stray he could feel good about rescuing. His gaze locked on mine, cool and dangerous.
No pity.
I didn't believe him, but I stayed. And God's help me, all of me wanted to. Chapter 4. Sass and Secrets. Issa. The scent of the coffee reminded me of scorched mud. I took a sip anyway. It was bitter. Stung the roof of my mouth. Left an aftertaste of wet paper, but it was warm, and I needed something in my hands. Something that said I was here. Taking up space, not just a shadow with nowhere to land.
Everything okay with that?
Eden asked with a slight rasp that suggested long nights and even longer silences. I looked at him over the rim of the cracked diner mug. I've had worse, but this is definitely a close runner-up. Did they brew it through an old sock? The sludge the night of the mugging had been slightly more drinkable, at least for the 2 sips I managed before everything fell apart. A chill traced my spine, the way I'd stood there splashed with coffee, directionless, questioning if I'd made a mistake. I shivered, the memory curling in my mind, bitter smoke I couldn't wave away. Eden's brow furrowed, and the little scrunch between his eyebrows was unexpectedly cute.
Are you cold?
I could have lied, said it was the draft, blamed it on the sock coffee, but the genuine concern in his voice made me want to give him the truth. I got jumped a couple nights ago, I said, the words rough and reluctant. Someone thought I was easy pickings, took my satchel, everything except a coin I had on me, and I stopped short. I couldn't tell him about the necklace. That would be life-altering. And not in a good way. Eden went absolutely still. His gaze swept over me.
Are you hurt?
He asked, voice low. Then his jaw clenched.
Did that bastard hurt you?
The fury in his tone was dangerous in its quiet. A blade unsheathed without flourish, but no less lethal. Like if I said yes, someone would bleed for it. It caught me off guard. No, I said, shaking my head. I got shoved, spilled my coffee, bruised ego more than anything. He stared at me for a moment longer, gaze steady, searching, checking for battle scars I hadn't mentioned. It had been a long, long time since anyone had looked at me like I mattered. He exhaled, sharp, clipped, a breath that carried weight. He was furious and still trying to leash it.
I can find them for you,
he said, voice dark.
Make them pay.
No, I said quietly. Whoever it was didn't get much. My necklace, my life. Just a few clothes, my phone and such. At least the phone was a burner. No contacts, untraceable. Otherwise, my adventure would have been over long ago. I took a sip of the coffee, hoping the bitterness would swallow the lump in my throat. All it did was add more. Eaton's mouth twitched. Not a full smile, just the idea of one forming.
You're brave,
he said.
Drinking the coffee here.
For a split second, I thought he meant the mugging I'd endured, the trauma, the baggage I hadn't exactly hidden well. But no, he meant the coffee. Or maybe he meant both. Maybe he was just better at disguising his words than I was. I stared down at the cup, fingers tightening around the handle. Pride doesn't taste better, and it's a lot harder to swallow. He didn't laugh, didn't blink, just nodded once, slow and knowing. There was no judgment in his face, just quiet understanding. And maybe that was the scariest part, being seen without having to explain. Eventually, I ordered a slice of apple pie, just the one. Told myself it was to quiet the grumble in my stomach. But the first bite hit like a lullaby. Buttery crust, warm, syrupy apples, cinnamon and sugar and a dash of something that reminded me what peace could taste like. Eden watched me across the rim of his mug, that crooked smirk returning.
You went for the apple?
It had to be done. He lifted his own cup in mock toast.
We have something in common now.
My fork hovered. More than you think, I murmured. He didn't ask what I meant, just tilted his head slightly, as if filing that truth away for later. Noted, logged, not pushed. From across the room, a drunken voice cut through the silence that followed.
Hey, tell her she can do better!
Leather Jacket shouted from the booth in a tone filled with smug energy. Eden winced.
That's Eddie,
he said under his breath, tone apologetic.
He's not known for his subtlety.
I didn't turn, just raised my voice enough to carry across the diner. If that's your wingman, you might want to reconsider the flight path. There was a beat of stunned silence. Clean-cut guy burst out laughing. The sound was sharp and sudden and whole, as if it surprised even him.
Hadn't heard that in a while.
Etan muttered. I wanted to ask what happened to clean-cut guy. What kind of pain lived in a man who laughed like it was foreign? But in this dive of a diner, under the flickering lights and pie crust flakes on the counter, it wasn't the place to find out. Gods, why was I worrying about it anyway? I wouldn't see Etan again after tonight. That's how this worked. Strangers crossing paths, sharing warmth, parting ways. And yet, the thought left a hollow bruise on my heart.
So,
He said briskly, as if we hadn't just skimmed the edge of someone's grief.
what about you? You always drink terrible diner coffee on Friday nights.
I shrugged. It was either this or loitering outside the motel with the Witchroot crowd.
Tempting.
The vibes weren't right. He grinned.
And what are the vibes here?
I glanced down at the mug. Bitter burnt rubber chic. He laughed, full and sudden, and just like that, something eased in my chest. A tiny knot I didn't know I'd had until that moment began to loosen. We were strangers, but I didn't feel so alone anymore. Chapter 5. The apartment, Isa. We talked. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing revealing. He asked where I was from. I said around. He asked what I did. I said a little of everything. He didn't push, just nodded, like he understood the language of people who didn't want to be pinned down. I learned he hated olives, couldn't stand the feel of velvet, and, this one made me sit up, was currently learning how to line dance. Line dance? I echoed, raising a brow. Boots and belt buckles kinda line dancing? He nodded, deadly serious.
My assistant dragged me to a class, said I needed a hobby that didn't involve teeth or mergers. I nearly took out an entire row with a spin I wasn't ready for.
I laughed before I could stop myself. He grinned.
Split my skin open on the mirror, healed in 30 seconds, but I still got banned from two-stepping without supervision.
You bled on the floor and they still let you back in?
They let me watch from the edge.
He said dryly.
I've been demoted to moral support and snack duty.
Tragic. I deadpanned. All that vamp power and you can't even master a grapevine? His grin turned smug.
Give me time. I'm told I've got killer hip action.
I snorted, rolling my eyes. Must have been a mercy ban. He laughed again. Rich, full, and gods, it was warm. The kind of laugh that settled under your skin and made a home there. How damn dangerous was that? He turned slightly, one elbow on the counter, his body angled toward mine. A stance I hoped was intentional. His mouth curved into something wicked and amused, too elegant for how often it smirked. And when those ancient eyes that had seen too much and cared for so little caught mine, they wanted the same thing I did. More.
You've got a sharp mouth,
he said with his gaze fixated on my lips, his tone admiring. Comes standard with the sarcasm package. His eyes lifted, meeting mine.
I like it.
I blinked, my heart doing something it hadn't ever done. It leaned in. Back in my realm, I hadn't had much experience. My partners there didn't appreciate sharp mouths. They called it attitude, something to tame or ignore. But Etan? He'd said it like it was a compliment. I lowered my gaze to the mug, taking a sip. The coffee was almost gone. Warmth almost faded. The night stretching outside the window was a road with no end. Eden's gaze swept over me, reading signals I hadn't meant to give.
Where are you sleeping tonight?
My jaw locked. There it was. The question no one wanted to ask because they were afraid of the answer. I considered lying, inventing a friend, a reservation, some safe, believable out. Something in his tone had stripped that option away. I don't know, I said. The words stung worse than the coffee.
I've got a spare room,
he said.
Clean sheets, a lock on the door, no strings. In the morning, I'll send you on your way.
I huffed a laugh, unsure if it was nerves or disbelief. His jaw was tight, his brow focused but not calculating, There was something almost lonely behind the polish. "You do this often?" I asked. "Pick up strays and offer them shelter?"
"No," he said simply. "Just you."
"That's supposed to make me feel special?"
"No," he said. "Safe."
The way he said it without an angle, an agenda, made my chest tighten. "I don't need saving," I told him, softer than I had spoken to him all evening.
"I'm not offering that."
"Then what are you offering?"
"A room," he said again. "And maybe breakfast. I make a mean blueberry pancake."
My heart paused for half a breath. Not because of the offer, but because for just a second, I thought he might say something else, something more. But he didn't. I laughed again, quieter this time, and watched him closely, studying the lines of his face, the shape of the words he didn't say, looking for the catch, the hook, the tilt of arrogance most men didn't bother hiding. Still didn't find it, making it doubly hard to say no. My pride wanted me to walk out, swallow that bitter pill and disappear into the night like I always did. But my bones ached, my feet hurt, and something in me, something buried and too damn tired, just wanted to stop running, even if only for one night. "Okay," I said, drawing the word out. "I'll come home with you." The moment his penthouse door clicked shut behind me, the silence stretched. Not just the absence of sound, this was a velvet curtain drawn across the world outside, plush and weighty. The space watched, or maybe it simply held its breath. He did. I could see it in the subtle stillness of his broad shoulders, the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw. My skin prickled with awareness, not with fear, though a healthy dose of caution wouldn't have been misplaced. No, it became a thirsty vine reaching for rain. We were alone, truly alone, in his beautiful penthouse apartment with vaulted ceilings that seemed to kiss the sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows spilled moonlight across obsidian floors, turning the city lights into scattered diamonds. Bookshelves lined with leather-bound tomes and old grimoires whispered secrets in silent languages. He stood a few steps behind me. Tall, composed, and still wearing that coat, he gave off a quiet confidence that made me feel every inch of my dirty clothes. I shouldn't have been nervous. I was a grown woman, capable, independent. But something about being this close to him, in his world, with no one watching, no pretense to maintain, made every beat of my pulse knock a frantic drum against my ribs. Gods, how easily I could fall.
"Spare rooms this way," he said, his voice a low rumble that rolled through the floorboards. He turned and walked ahead.
I followed, not too close, careful to keep a sliver of distance, but my eyes followed the way his shoulders tensed beneath his coat, jaw chewing on thoughts too heavy to say aloud. It stirred something I hadn't felt in years, something that cracked through the numb. Eden Sinclair wasn't what I'd expected, not polished and cold, not one of those blood-born nobles too steeped in protocol to breathe. He laughed at himself, let his guard down enough to make space for someone else. He'd protected me, a girl he barely knew. Heat licked up my neck and spread over my face to my hairline. Something raw and undeniable burned through me. Running fast, hot. Gods, what was wrong with me? He opened a door to a guest room that was better than anything I deserved. A sleek bed with iron posts that looked forged in a dream. Blue-gray sheets that whispered promises of sleep. Minimalist decor, each piece carefully chosen, perfectly placed. Even the air in here felt curated.
"You can lock the door from the inside,"
he said, voice controlled, as if he were deliberately keeping a lid on something.
"Bathrooms through there, full toiletries if you're hungry."
"I'm fine," I lied, the word a dry rasp in my throat, because I wasn't sure what would come out if I said anything else. The truth, maybe. And the truth was a dangerous weapon in a place like this. Eden stood just outside the doorway, one hand braced on the frame, his knuckles white. Watching me. An artist studying a canvas, trying to decipher its secrets. debating whether or not he'd just made the best mistake of his life. Or the worst. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, the question hanging in the air between us, fragile and heavy. His jaw ticked, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. He didn't answer right away, and the silence stretched, thick with unspoken words. I could almost hear the hamster wheel turning in his mind.
"Because you didn't flinch."
He finally said, his voice bleeding into a whisper. "What?" I asked, confused.
"When I offered you help, you didn't simper, didn't pretend to be grateful, batting your eyelashes and begging for more. You told me to try harder. You didn't need saving. You needed space."
His gaze locked on mine.
"I respect that."
He leaned just slightly closer, closing the distance between us. Not touching me, but close enough that I could feel my warmth bounce off his body, close enough that I could smell his scent, dark and spicy and utterly intoxicating. Then there was the pull, the undeniable magnetic force that threatened to shatter the walls I built so high. I took a step back in self-preservation. "Thank you." I smiled up at him. Gratitude felt inadequate, a paltry offering in the face of such unexpected generosity, but it was all I had. He nodded once, a curt acknowledgement, then turned to go, the movement abrupt, almost too quick, as if he needed to put distance between us as soon as possible. But before he left, he paused at the door, his hand on the frame.
"If you change your mind,"
he said, turning to catch my gaze with quiet precision, holding it captive.
"I make a damn good late-night omelet."
I almost smiled. Almost. He shut the door behind him with a soft click, and I finally let my breath go. The bathroom was stocked like a boutique spa. Towels, soap that smelled like citrus and cedar, a toothbrush still in the wrapper. I stared at my reflection. Still tired, still shadow-eyed, but cleaner, at least. A little less broken around the edges. Maybe. I pulled the borrowed shirt from the foot of the bed, lifting it to my face. It smelled like him. That same dark, spicy scent that had been swirling around me all night. And that? That did things to me I wasn't ready to admit. Things that made my stomach clench and my pulse quicken and my imagination run wild. I curled into the covers, the soft fabric a welcome change from the harshness of the past few months. Every nerve still humming from the adrenaline of the night and the bone-deep exhaustion that clung to me like a cloak. Still, I didn't sleep right away. My mind was too active, replaying every moment, every word, every glance. Because somewhere, separated by only a few walls and a closed door, Etan Sinclair was probably still awake. And the only thing I could think about was the way his eyes lingered on me, the intensity in his gaze, wondering if he was already imagining the same things I was. Chapter 6. The Spark. Etan. Dressed in my usual downtime uniform, cotton black pants, and nothing else. I sat at my desk, pretending to compose a message to my assistant. Delicate negotiations were on the agenda for the morning, and I needed to bring my A-game. An exercise in futility. The words refused to line up. Issa was 20 feet away, in bed, wearing my shirt. And God's help me, that single detail detonated something primal in my chest. I told myself not to listen to her, but I was. Every breath she took, every rustle of sheets, pulled me deeper, like a whispered invitation I had no business answering. The ache in my chest wasn't blood hunger. That was a low hum compared to this. This was deeper, older, starving. She was fire under my ribs, and I hadn't even touched her. I shouldn't care. Not like this. Not this much, not this fast. I had rules, walls, carefully constructed defenses built over centuries. This was supposed to be a distraction, a dare, nothing more. But when she'd told me she'd been attacked, something inside me snapped. Something protective and dangerous and painfully alive. I reacted before I thought, before I filtered. Scott would have raised a disapproving brow. Eddie would have called me whipped. My grandmother would call it weakness. Camille would laugh. So why did I want to find the bastard who hurt her and make him understand exactly what it meant to touch something I'd already started thinking of as mine? I poured a glass of water to distract myself. My MO was never that of a hero, yet within minutes of meeting her, Issa, that was what I had become. At the window, I sipped my water and watched the city's lights blink lazily in the distance, as if the world weren't shifting beneath my feet. Not a minute later, I heard her. Bare feet padding across the floor, shirt brushing her thighs. That shirt, mine. The scent of us clung to it. She didn't speak, just stood there watching me, eyes wide, lip caught between her teeth. And then, she moved. No seduction, no show, just intention, just heat, just her. I couldn't sleep, she murmured, voice full of smoke and vulnerability. I sent my water on a low table and met her the rest of the way.
Me either.
The truth tasted like surrender. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked. I could have deflected, should have, but the truth was too close to lie. There was something about the way she moved, like she'd lost too much and still refused to break. Her defiance wasn't loud, but it burned. And when our eyes met, I didn't see a mark or a mystery. I saw someone who'd built their walls with the same precision I had. And maybe I wanted to see what happened if we both stopped hiding.
Because you walked past me, and I haven't stopped thinking about you since.
She tilted her head, vulnerability in her eyes, but not weakness, just armor, worn raw. "That's all it takes?"
No,
I said.
but it was enough to ruin everything else.
"I don't want you to think..."
That you owe me anything?
I cut in gently. She nodded.
You don't.
I said.
This isn't charity. It's surrender. And I think we're both tired of pretending we don't want it.
I stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, leaving space for her to run. She didn't. When I brushed a curl behind her ear, her breath hitched. Her magic sparked, barely contained. My fingers trailed down her cheek. Warm.
You're not afraid of me.
I murmured. Should I be? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Her fingers found my wrist, just a brush. My bond mark, meant for someone else, pulsed electric. A dam burst wide. I leaned in. Our mouths met, soft for a second, then... combustion. No preamble, no hesitation, just us. Tangled, burning, real. She kissed like she wanted to remember it forever. And I kissed her like I already did. Hands on her waist, nails digging into my back. The wall behind her barely kept us upright. Her moan was soft, broken mine. Then came the sound that undid me completely. Etan, she breathed. Not a name, a choice. And I pulled back. Because if I didn't stop now, I wouldn't stop at all. And God's how I wanted to give in. But those words she'd spoken earlier, more than you think, clicked into place, a clue I couldn't ignore. Secrets lingered between us. Secrets that would break us if we didn't find the truth first. She didn't belong in the shadows. Even in scuffed boots and denim, she carried herself like old blood, regal, untamed. What would claiming her make me? Protector? Or something darker? So I stepped back. Her breathing was ragged, lips kiss-bruised, eyes half-lidded. Sexy.
We should.
I started. The words cut deep, final. Yeah, she whispered. Neither of us moved. I brushed my thumb over her lower lip. A promise. A goodbye.
Good night, Issa.
I said. Then I turned. Every step away from her agony. Chapter 7, The Secret, Issa. Sleep hovered just out of reach. A kindness I couldn't claim. Not with my lips still marked by his kiss that was too soft to be survival, too fierce to be casual. It left something behind in me I wasn't ready to name. He tasted like dusk and danger, mouth firm and hot, hungry. His goodbye had been a whisper against my skin, heavy with meaning, as if it cost him something. And gods, I'd almost dragged him right back. Seeing him this morning didn't help. Dressed in tailored slacks and an unbuttoned charcoal shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, he was effortless and carved from midnight, broad shoulders wrapped in power, his damp hair slicked back with a touch of disobedience. And it wasn't just desire that twisted inside me. It was the ache of knowing I couldn't afford this. Couldn't afford him. Why? Because the bathroom mirror had spilled a secret. As I'd splashed water on my face, I caught a glimpse of silver markings beginning to shimmer through my glamour, the delicate spirals and runes of my family appearing at my temples. If he knew who I was... The thought haunted me as I padded into the kitchen, even as hunger pushed me forward. For food, for him, I wasn't sure. Etan didn't speak at first, just handed me a mug. The coffee was fresh, dark, spiced with something expensive. "Thanks," I murmured. We needed to talk about last night, about the kiss, the fire that still burned behind my ribs. But I didn't bring it up. I couldn't. Not when the weight of who I really was still pressed on me like a curse. Etan felt the same. He didn't mention the kiss either. Instead, he leaned against the counter, his gaze studying me. Not with hunger, but intent. The kind of look people saved for cursed texts or volatile potions. "What?" I asked, feigning indifference.
You look different.
He said. I stiffened. I cleaned up.
That's not what I meant.
Maybe it's the lighting. He didn't press, but I saw the awareness. He could feel something off. He was old enough, powerful enough to sense the shift in magic. I turned toward the sun filtering through the kitchen windows. It spilled across the floor and didn't touch him. Not in the way it should. "You're not burning?"
Warded glass.
He said.
Filters UV without killing the warmth.
"That's expensive magic." He shrugged.
Perks of building your own empire.
Not bragging, just truth. Still, it landed. Some of us could barely afford shadows. He'd woven sunlight into his home.
I made pancakes.
He added, nodding toward the stove.
Blueberry, help yourself. Fridge is yours too.
My stomach twisted, pride and need in a bitter dance. He opened his mouth again, and for a breath I thought he might talk about the kiss. Instead, he said,
That thing you did in the diner with Eddie.
"What thing?"
You shut him down, got Scott to laugh.
His voice dipped, rougher now.
I haven't seen that in years.
I hesitated, curiosity winning after all. What happened to him? Eden's smile faded. He looked toward the living room, toward memory, toward grief.
Scott was off-realm, settling a celestial boundary dispute. While he was gone, someone broke into his home.
My heart stopped.
They killed his wife and daughter. No leads, no suspects, just loss.
The air stilled.
He left everything the next day, started over here, for work, for me. He shows up even when he can't stand the skin he's in.
And in that moment, I saw him. Eden didn't just lead, he carried every broken piece of his circle, without complaint.
You made him feel seen.
He said.
Not pitied, just there.
A pause.
Thank you.
He added in the reverent tone of a truth laid bare. It undid me. Whatever that kiss was, whatever we were, it could wait. Some things were heavier. You've got a lot of weight on your shoulders, I said quietly.
Legacy's a bitch,
he said with a half smile. So's hiding, I muttered, not meaning to say it aloud. His eyes sharpened, too sharp. I cursed myself. His kind heard everything. I had to be more careful. He rolled his left sleeve up absently, and my breath caught. There on his forearm, silvery runes. The marks were beautiful and heartbreaking, like shattered crystal frozen in the moment of breaking. Blood had activated the ritual, but the magic was unfinished, creating a dangerous, unstable connection without a completion. I'd seen paintings of the ritual in my father's study, 2 forearms pressed together, blood mingling as the magic sealed both participants into a lifelong connection. But I'd never seen what happened when the ritual was interrupted, and I feared what tragedy it would bring. After a pause, Etan said,
I'll be gone most of the day. Meetings. You're welcome to stay, rest, eat, shower, whatever you need.
Why? I asked, before I could stop myself. He turned to face me fully, his eyes dark and unreadable.
Because if you leave now, I'll regret it.
He grabbed his jacket, started for the door. Then paused, glanced back.
And Issa?
His voice gentled.
If there's something you're not telling me, I get it, but don't wait too long.
Then he was gone. I stood there in the sunlight, wrapped in his warmth despite the coolness of his skin, holding a mug I didn't drink and secrets I couldn't keep. I set the mug down with trembling hands and moved to his study. I shouldn't be snooping, but something pulled me forward. The door wasn't locked. Inside, on the wall behind his desk, hung a framed document. My heart nearly stopped as I approached it. The blood contract, preserved like a monument to betrayal. His signature was bold, confident. The other was delicate, precise. I touched the glass with my fingertips, feeling the dormant magic still pulsing within the document. A small box sat on his desk. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside lay a ring, platinum and moonstone, carved with ancient Fae symbols of protection and loyalty. The binding ring he would have given his bondmate during the ceremony. It was beautiful, the exact style I would have cherished. I closed the box and left his office, a dejected feeling settling around my heart. How long could I keep up the farce? I didn't know, especially since entering Etan's home, something old and wild stirred beneath my fading magic, demanding to be seen. I told myself it was exhaustion. Vampires, built for eternal vigilance, didn't need sleep. Fae, we needed our rest, our rituals, our roots. Without them, we got cranky, disoriented, dangerous. Deep down, I knew it was something different. On the run from my father, Etan, my forced obligation, I hadn't had a moment's rest. Being in an unfamiliar realm meant constantly looking over my shoulder, never knowing who or what might be lurking in the shadows. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, not when any moment of vulnerability could lead to capture or worse. I'd chosen this realm out of hundreds because it was the last place my father would think to look for me. Here, among the vampires and werewolves and other creatures of the night, a runaway could disappear. Yet, even here, I couldn't escape the outcome of my destiny. To pass the nights, I'd read everything about the scandal, hungry for details that confirmed I'd made the right choice in ditching Etan Sinclair. He was the man my father had arranged for me to bond with, without ever meeting. The man whose blood was supposed to mix with mine in a ritual as old as the realms. The contract had been ironclad, the expectations clear. I was to be a quiet, elegant accessory to his power, a political bridge between our kinds. I'd run because I couldn't breathe under the weight of my future. But I was so tired. Tired of running. Tired of being no one. Tired of the bone-deep loneliness that came with hiding. A few days ago, I'd collapsed in an alley from magical exhaustion, and no one had even stopped to check if I was breathing. Maybe that's why, despite everything, I craved a moment of someone, him, seeing me, even if it couldn't last. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd fled an arranged bond with a stranger I was sure would cage me in luxury and politics. Now I was falling for the same man, except this time I knew him, knew his laugh, his loyalty, the way he carried his friend's pain without bending. I hadn't just rejected a political arrangement, I'd rejected him. And now fate had thrown us together with the cruelest twist. I was drawn to him freely, in a way I never would have been if forced. The bond marks on his arm weren't just remnants of a failed political alliance. They were physical evidence of my betrayal. The man who had kissed me last night, who had opened his home to me, who made blueberry pancakes and filtered sunlight through expensive wards, I had publicly humiliated him. There was no possible way this could end well. And the second he found out who I really was, we would both burn. Chapter 8. The Boardroom, Etan. In the midst of one of the most important deals of my career, everything was off. My rhythm, my focus, the sense of control I'd curated over decades, shaken loose. And I knew exactly why. Isa. Her scent still lingered on my skin. Her kiss still haunted my mouth. That girl had blown a hole through my composure, and here I was, sitting at the negotiating table, trying to stitch myself back together while pretending nothing had changed. Thankfully, I had my friends watching my back. Their presence was a reminder that I wasn't in this alone, and I was damn lucky to have their loyalty. Eddie stood like a statue by the door, all 6'4" of muscled werewolf menace. He was here as my security, my enforcer should tempers run too high, leaving me to focus on the subtle art of negotiation. While I wasn't above using force if necessary, resorting to violence in the middle of a meeting would send the wrong message and jeopardize my firm. Scott, seated at my right, was as polished as ever. White blonde hair combed into controlled perfection, navy suit immaculate. He was a celestial strategist through and through, sharp, elegant, deadly beneath the layers of calm. The only sign of his tension was the faint twitch at his jawline, so subtle only I would have caught it. Across the table sat the clients. Varek Riltorn, a high-blood vampire of the old territories, suave, serpentine, and just barely civil, commanded the table with smooth authority. Beside him, Elas Kane, a younger blood from a brutal line, reeked of cologne and barely concealed aggression. He shook hands with everyone, except Scott, angling his body subtly away as if Scott were the sun itself. Across from them sat Jonah Sims, a nervous human liaison from the Regulatory Commission, and Mr. Jimmy Jones, the man who'd requested this meeting. Jones was older, rotund, ruddy-cheeked, with close-cropped fire engine hair and eyes that didn't match his smile. He represented a syndicate of human donors, an umbrella term that made my canines ache. The proposal on the table was ambitious, borderline reckless, but Varric and Silas pitched it with the confidence of men who'd never heard the word no. They wanted to build the Blood Club, a luxury venue where humans could offer their blood willingly. No coercion, no enthrallment, all under the banner of safety and consent. A legal sanctuary for those who still liked to indulge. The idea, on the surface, was civilized and very marketable. But that wasn't the whole pitch. Not even close. The real hook? The part whispered under their breath but etched in bold between the lines? Carnal access. For the right price, the Blood Club wouldn't just serve blood, it would serve bodies. Consent would still be the shield they waved, but make no mistake, this wasn't about feeding. It was about fantasy. Hunger, pleasure, power, offered on a silver platter to those rich enough to pay the price. And that's where things got dangerous. Because once you mix blood and lust, the lines blur. Fast. And no matter how many rules you etch into stone, someone always bleeds in the wrong way. Still, I saw the play. The profits would be staggering. The prestige, even greater. If they pulled it off, it wouldn't just be a club. It would be the sanctuary, where predator and prey came willingly, and no appetite was off the table. It was bold, brilliant even, and a powder keg waiting for a spark. From the way the meeting was going, the match was already lit.
"We request all entrants pass through magic dampening wards,"
Jones said, fingers steepled over a scry tablet.
"We can't afford slip-ups."
"Your suggestion insults our restraint,"
Silas said coolly.
"and implies criminal intent."
Jones didn't flinch.
It implies caution. We're dealing with predators, and that's why there are rules.
The air snapped. Eddie leaned forward slightly, just enough for the room to feel the shift. But my mind was miles away. I should have been the one threading the needle here. This was my operation, my reputation. But I was haunted by a girl in my bed, a girl who'd touched something I'd buried a long time ago.
You're quiet, Sinclair.
Varric said, arching a brow.
Is this not your table?
I blinked once.
We'll revisit the clause. Perhaps enchanted thresholds, detective, not suppressive, something that ensures consent without disrespect.
Jones scoffed.
Consent doesn't mean comfort. My people need to feel safe.
My people. The words stuck. Not donors, not clients, possessions. I was about to speak when Jones stood. Unwise in a room like this.
I don't care what kind of arcane riddles you spin. Those I provide for your little ventures won't walk into a death trap.
Eddie's body moved before his face did, a single crack of his knuckles. Jones sat back down. Scott spoke next, unflinching.
There are functioning models in other territories. The Club on Sticks, the Old Blood Lounge in Havensend. We'll use them as templates.
The vampires nodded, mollified. But me? My thoughts had drifted back to soft lips and haunted brown eyes, to a girl who looked like she'd never belong in this world but dared to anyway. Issa had cracked something open in me, and if I wasn't careful, she'd break all the way through. Inside the conveyance back to the office, silence reigned. For a block, at least. I stared out the window, the city flashing by in a bouquet made of gold and shadow. I was still trying to pull myself out of the memory of Issa's mouth on mine, the soft press of her body, the heat she left behind. It was like the damn kiss had rewired my instincts, and I didn't like that. It was too much, too close, and I was still pretending it wasn't.
That guy Jones
Eddie muttered, never one to enjoy his own thoughts.
came in swinging. Didn't even try to hide the stink of power tripping. Like he thought we'd all just roll over.
He's hiding something.
I said, my voice flatter than it should have been. Too distant, still caught up in the memory of Issa. Barefoot, magic humming around her like a pulse, curled in my shirt like it belonged to her.
Yeah,
Eddie grunted.
his ego.
No.
I said, leaning back in the seat, my gaze fixed on the lights smearing past the tinted window.
Something darker, seedier.
Scott didn't respond right away. Classic. But the shift was there. A tilt of his head, a quiet clench in his hand resting on his thigh. Not much, but I knew Scott. I'd learned to read silence better than most men read words. I turned slightly.
Scott?
He didn't look at me, just kept watching the road ahead with that too-still posture he used when he was thinking about war.
It was the way he said my people.
He said finally, voice low and even.
Not clients, not volunteers, mine.
My jaw ticked.
That's what I thought.
Eddie rolled his neck, his irritation bleeding into the air.
It's not your mess, Sinclair. You're the go-between. The owners screen the donors. You just draw the lines and sign the peace.
Scott didn't answer, but I didn't need him to. I saw it, etched deep into the steel behind his eyes. This wasn't over, not with that look. Jones had wandered into Scott's domain now, and whether or not the Celestial Order still claimed him, he carried its judgment like it was a sacred blade. He didn't let things slide, not when innocents were involved. Another block passed. Eddie broke the silence again, never one to let a moment lie unbothered. He leaned forward, elbow on his knee, catching my gaze in the mirror.
You've been real quiet for a guy who just got a hot slice of pie. You two headed out without a wave goodbye. Did you break any furniture?
My brow arched.
Eddie.
What?
He grinned, teeth flashing.
No kiss and tell. That's a first.
I didn't answer. He drew the word out like he was tasting it.
Serious, then. You only shut down when it's serious, which has been like, never.
Last chance.
I said evenly.
Shut it.
Eddie wisely snapped his mouth shut and threw me a mock salute. We'd come to blows once back at New Havens, over something stupid, probably a cursed poker hand or borrowed clothes that had gotten ripped. Didn't remember the particulars, but I remembered the pain. Quick healing aside, we'd both limped for a week. That was why I was pretty sure neither of us wanted a repeat. But if it came to that, I'd fight him again, for her. Scott broke the tension, voice quiet but sharp.
If she's hiding something,
He said without looking at me.
you'd better figure out what it is
He paused,
before she ruins you.
and that landed harder than anything Eddie could have said. Because it wasn't judgment. It was a warning. And from Scott, that meant something. Meant I had to do something about it. Dusk had come and gone before I stepped through the entranceway. I'd told myself I wouldn't care. If she stayed, fine. If she vanished, even better. One sniff proved she was still with me. The relief hit harder than I'd expected. Jolting, sudden, and infuriatingly welcome. I'd walked in bracing for empty silence. For a scribbled note left on the back of a receipt. Maybe a faint trace of her scent lingering like a bruise. Instead, there she was. Cross-legged on the floor of my office. Loose charcoal slacks I'd scrounge up hanging off her frame. One of my shirts swallowing her shoulders. Dark curls veiled one cheek as she leaned over an old leather-bound tome. Fey dialects and dream spells, written in the old tongue, a language dead to most outside noble bloodlines. No notes, no guide, no hesitation. Her fingers moved along the faded lines like she'd written them herself, lips moving in silent translation. When I stepped into the doorway, she didn't startle, didn't snap the book shut or jump to explain herself. She just looked up, slow, measured, calm. And that was the moment I knew something didn't fit. Vampires were born of the wild fae, once cast out, now evolved in darker ways. I'd spent lifetimes dealing with their courts, negotiating, fighting, betting, bleeding, and I'd never met a fae outside the noble houses who could read the old tongue without a guide.
You're not just clever.
I said softly, stepping into the dimming light. Her expression didn't shift, but her magic did. It rippled, almost imperceptibly, a hum just beneath my skin, a wrong frequency, like something tuned too tight, ready to snap. She didn't answer. I stepped forward. The air between us buzzed with static, a whiff of ozone before the lightning struck, that subtle, dangerous kind of tension life-altering secrets could summon.
You can read that book.
I said. Still nothing, just that watchful, unblinking stillness, a predator gauging risk. And then I knew. No more ignoring the signals. No more pretending she was just a clever runaway with a sharp mouth and a good story.
Isa.
I said, voice low.
What are you?
Her mouth parted barely, not in shock, not in denial. In surrender. Then she stood, silent, poised, not guilty, and dropped the glamour. It was subtle, elegant, a mist unrolling from her skin like silk. Her magic didn't shout. It whispered. It shimmered at the edges of perception. Her eyes glinted silver for less than a breath. Her scent shifted, wildflowers and night air, touched by moonlight. My body went still. Although I never saw a picture, I knew that magic. It was in the blood contract hanging on my wall.
Isa Lane.
I said, the name snapping out of me like a slap.
Isa Lane Morrowind.
She didn't deny it, didn't lie, just looked at me with that quiet fire she had inside her.
You were her.
I breathed. She nodded once. I still am. My pulse didn't quicken. Vampires didn't have a heart that beat. But I felt the jolt in my bones.
You ran.
I said.
You disappeared before the bond was sealed. No note, no word, no reason.
I couldn't let myself be owned. That bond was arranged without my voice, without my choice. I was a pawn. She gave a little conciliatory shrug. Sorry, not sorry. I chose not to play.
You could have told me.
I said, the words ripping out harsher than I meant.
We could have.
She threw up her hands. I nearly ducked. Her magic was powerful, scary in its revelation. I didn't know you, she said. And I didn't trust anyone.
And now?
She shook her head, and her eyes failed to meet mine. I still don't, she whispered. But I didn't run, not this time. The silence stretched between us, full of too many things. History, loss. The kiss we'd shared when we were still pretending to be strangers. The one that made us both liars. Because I'd spent centuries building a reputation for being calm, on being unshakable. But she'd shaken me to the core. Chapter 9. The Fallout, Isa. I'd expected the storm. Expected the anger, the betrayal. What I didn't expect, what cut the deepest, was the quiet. Etan didn't snarl, didn't shout. He just stood there, perfectly still, watching me like something vital had splintered in his chest, and he hadn't decided yet whether to bleed or burn.
You were her.
Not a question. Just a dagger, stabbing, twisting. I was always me, I whispered. You just didn't know me. His eyes didn't move, but something behind them shifted, cold, distant, calculating.
You let me kiss you.
I didn't plan it.
But you didn't stop it.
No, my voice cracked. I didn't. The bond marks on his forearm seemed to pulse in response to my confession, a silver glow briefly illuminating the interrupted pattern. My own arm burned in sympathetic resonance, the glamour flickering to reveal matching marks that had been hidden beneath my magic.
Did you feel it?
He asked, voice barely audible.
When our lips touched.
I'd felt the magic all right. It had zinged through me in a surge so strong, I briefly lifted from the floor. Yes. A silence bloomed between us, ruinous, ominous. Then he moved. Just a turn, nothing more, but it felt like a wall being built. His hands went to his hips, shoulders rigid, that strong jaw locked like he was fighting every instinct not to throw something.
You were in my home, accepting my hospitality.
He said, voice low and tight.
And you were her the whole time.
I wasn't pretending, I said. I was surviving. His head turned just enough to look at me, and in his eyes, I saw his pain. Sharp and raw.
I would have helped you,
he said, softer now. A confession laced with something like hurt.
Even back then, if you just said something.
You don't get it, I said, stepping closer, though every inch between us a cliff our connection dangled from. Your name wasn't just a name, Etan, it was a sentence. He flinched. But I kept going. I wasn't running from you. I was running from everyone who wanted to use me. I was the sacrificial daughter of a fractured home. Every step of my life had been planned, controlled. I swallowed hard. My father used to be the best part of my life. The words came quiet, scraped raw from someplace deep. Back when my mother was alive, he called me his starborn, said I carried her light. The memory dragged bitter weight behind it. It came out in my tone. She was his favorite, the only thing that made him kind. My throat tightened. When she died, murdered by one of his other lovers, he broke. Couldn't look at me without seeing her ghost. My gaze dropped to my hands. So he stopped trying, stopped seeing me. The ache in my chest welled up, coiling tighter. Before I was born, he had 12 children, all sons. Powerful, political, planned for. I was the only daughter, the only bargaining chip he hadn't played yet. My voice went brittle. So he did what powerful men do when they feel powerless. I looked away, humiliated at my truth laid bare, even in front of him. He found a use for me, to bind his bloodline to yours. Shame rose in my throat, heavy and cloying. I forced the rest out anyway. The bond to your house was never about you, or me. I wrapped my arms tight around my chest. It was about shoring up his power, making sure if another noble house came for his territory, he'd have vampires at his back, and I was the key to that. There was more I could say about my pendant and what it had meant to my magic. Why the magic in me had begun to flare again, stronger than before. About the things stirring inside me that had nothing to do with relics or runes. But that truth was still tender, sacred, not yet ready for the air. Because it wasn't the pendant keeping me tethered anymore. It was him. A thread pulled taut by touch, connection, and something dangerously close to love. I searched Etan's face, dreading his reaction. His jaw ticked, the only sign he'd heard me.
Do you know what I was told about you?
He asked, his voice eerily controlled.
That you were the perfect diplomatic match, obedient, graceful, bred for court life.
His laugh was hollow.
They said you would strengthen both our bloodlines and bring peace between realms.
He paced a few steps, tension radiating from his shoulders.
My grandmother had a dress commissioned for you. Tailors worked for months. The ceremony was planned to the last detail. Diplomats traveled from 7 realms to witness our union.
The weight of that public humiliation hung in the air between us.
I spent nights rehearsing what I would say to you when we first met, hoping we might find some common ground.
His voice broke slightly.
While you were planning your escape.
Was that contempt? Disgust? I couldn't tell, but my guilt twisted sharply in my chest, unexpected and raw. I hadn't considered the preparation, the expectation, the genuine effort he might have made. I'd been so focused on my own cage that I'd never thought about what it might have cost him when I fled. That guilt quickly morphed into defensive anger, a reflex I couldn't seem to control. I'd spent months justifying my choices, and facing his pain made those justifications feel suddenly hollow. So I did what cornered animals do. I bared my teeth. I've sacrificed everything to stay free. My name, my home, my future. I looked up at him, fierce and unflinching. I'm not sorry for not wanting to be owned.
You think I wanted to own you?
He asked, disgust evident in his tone. His eyes flashed with a mix of anger and pain.
Is that really how you see me?
No, I said quickly, instantly regretting letting my anger get the better of me. But by agreeing you wanted someone who wouldn't say no. His jaw clenched, pain rising in his eyes again, deeper this time.
I agreed because I believed in duty.
He said, each word precise.
Because after centuries of fighting against my grandmother's expectations, I finally understood the weight of legacy, the responsibility. The bond was larger than ourselves.
He turned to face me fully, shoulders tight.
I wasn't looking for a servant or a possession. I was looking for a partner.
The accusation in his eyes burned.
You stole my choice just as surely as your father stole yours.
That hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't considered how my disappearance had hurt him. I thought he would be above the fray. His name alone said that he would. I had gotten it so wrong.
Do you know what happens with incomplete bonds?
He asked, rolling up his sleeve to fully expose the silver markings.
They poison both participants, slowly. The magic turns toxic without resolution.
I hadn't known. The fear must have shown on my face.
These marks have been burning for months.
He continued.
The week before it had gotten so bad, I saw a void witch for pain management.
He looked at me with renewed intensity.
That's another consequence of your choice that you didn't consider.
I realized with a sinking feeling that while I, the bond breaker, had escaped the pain of the incomplete bond, Etan had been suffering silently for months. The weight of my actions settled heavily on my shoulders, a burden I wasn't sure I was ready to bear.
I need time.
He said finally.
To see what I want.
And gods, that broke me. Because I could feel it. That thread of almost, that ache of not yet, feelings unrequited. He wasn't pushing me away, but he wasn't reaching for me either.
The guest room is still yours,
he said, his voice controlled but strained.
I won't throw you out onto the street, but I can't.
He stopped, collected himself.
I can't pretend this doesn't change everything.
He turned away, shoulders rigid with tension.
We have to address the bond marks eventually. The magic won't wait forever. But right now, I need space.
The clinical tone hurt worse than anger would have. He was retreating behind the mask I'd seen in those Skynet photos. The controlled, diplomatic air who revealed nothing of his heart. I understand. I'll be gone in the morning. I walked out, footsteps light, but not silent. My magic surged inside me, flaring just beneath the surface, hurt, hot, desperate to unravel something. I kept it caged, because if I let it all the way loose, I wouldn't be able to control what it took with it. In the hallway mirror, I caught a glimpse of myself, the glamour completely failing now, revealing the silver markings at my temples, the ethereal glow of noble fey blood that I'd suppressed for so long. The freedom I'd run toward had become another kind of cage, one built of secrets and half-truths. And the man who had kissed me like I mattered now looked at me like a stranger, his eyes filled with the pain I had caused. Chapter 10. Undercover Lover, Etan. My mind wouldn't stop replaying the way she'd looked at me, shoulders squared, chin high, eyes shining like she knew she might lose me and still couldn't lie to stay. Issa Lane. The girl who vanished. The girl who refused me. And now the woman I couldn't stop wanting, even as my trust tangled with old betrayal. I drained my 4th glass of blood wine in one gulp. Blood wine. A modern fix for an old hunger. Part donor blood, part vintage red, aged under starlight and spell. It hadn't always been this way. But thanks to some long-forgotten ancestor who fell for a human, we'd adapted. Less biting, more sipping. Civilized. At least on the surface. It had been over a century since I last indulged in the act of taking blood, fresh from a vein. Didn't really see the need. I was about to pour myself another glass, intending on getting drunk, when a knock sounded. No buzz from the lycanthrope doorman. No warning. Just a knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. The kind that told you someone on the other side already knew they'd be let in. I opened the door. And there she was. Camille. Wrapped in red silk and sin. Her blonde hair twisted high, all sleek edges and sharpened smiles. Her fangs peeked just slightly behind her smirk. She always had a flair for entrances, the kind that made sure no one in the room forgot she'd arrived.
Well, well,
she purred, brushing past me like she still had a claim to the space.
Surprised to find you home.
Camille.
I said tightly, shutting the door harder than necessary.
What the hell are you doing here?
Missed you too, darling.
She'd been away for months. A diplomatic envoy to the Queen's Court in the Western Territories. Some nonsense about smoothing post-treaty tensions and reinforcing inter-realm trade. I hadn't expected her back until next month. Back when I'd still been expecting her. I didn't give a damn now. Her eyes roamed the apartment like a predator scenting prey. She stalked through it with languid interest, only to stand stock still near the couch. She sniffed the air once, then again, sharper. Her head snapped toward the hallway.
I smell Faye.
She spit out the last word as though it singed her tongue. I moved fast, blocking the hallway before she could take a step further.
Don't.
I warned.
Etan,
she said, all flirtation gone.
You brought a Faye here, into your bed?
No.
Don't lie.
She sniffed again, nose wrinkling.
Her magic is still in the air, sweet and old, powerful.
Leave, Camille.
But she didn't listen. She ran her fingers, nails painted blood red, along the back of the couch where Issa had been sitting, as if trying to absorb any lingering traces of her essence.
You've been holding out on me, Etan, a highborn Fae, in your home, in your bed.
She laughed, the sound false and bitter.
And here I thought I was the only one who could make you break your precious rules.
Her eyes gleamed with a dangerous mix of jealousy and morality, as if she had any claim on me or what I did with my life.
You know what happens when a vampire noble lets a fae claim his bed without a bond?
She stepped closer, voice low, menacing in its silkiness.
In case you've forgotten, I'll remind you. The Ashbourne Treaty may have ended open conflict between our races, but it's on life support, barely holding, and whose name is on that treaty? Whose house helped seal the accord between vampire and fae after the daylight culling?
Her eyes narrowed.
Yours and hers.
She was right. The daylight culling had torn through the vampire courts, hundreds exposed and slaughtered in the sun after a human rebellion exposed our feeding havens. Entire bloodlines erased. The fae blamed us for being careless. We blamed them for letting the humans get close. Years of blood, of pain, of silence, and then came the treaty. Our ancestors' masterpiece. And my bond, Isolane. The keystone to shoring it up, keeping it together. Old families sealed power through blood, alliances, and arranged bonds. I had been raised to know mine would be no different, for it carried the weight of a fragile peace between our kinds. The bond Isolane was meant to be the anchor that kept the Ashbourne Treaty in place, preventing the looming war for power between fae and vampire from consuming us all. Though we lived in separate realms, the need to expand into worlds that could accommodate our unique needs was always at the forefront of our minds. Vampires required realms where the sunlight, though strong, wouldn't reduce us to ash the moment we stepped outside. The Fae realm offered that sanctuary, and if the treaty crumbled, it would become the battleground for a war that would leave both our peoples in ruin.
Nothing happens.
I said, voice hard.
Because it's none of your business.
She tilted her head, stepping into my space with the grace of a ballet dancer with a dagger.
I'm still liaison to the Queen. It is my duty to report treaty violations.
She's not a violation.
She's Fae, unbonded.
Her fangs dropped, a certain sign of her anger.
And sleeping in your bed, as far as the Crown's concerned, that makes her a threat.
She tossed her head.
I'd be failing in my duties if I didn't do something about that.
I moved so fast she didn't see it coming. 1 second she was smirking. The next I had her backed against the wall, my voice a rasp.
She is not what you think she is, and she is not yours to threaten.
Camille's eyes widened. She sniffed. Once, twice. Then her gaze narrowed.
She's the one, isn't she?
Her voice was hushed.
The one who ran.
I said nothing. She smiled.
The ghost bride, the runaway bond. I'll admit, Etan, I didn't think you had it in you, falling for the girl who embarrassed your grandmother, who left your court scrambling.
She didn't embarrass me.
I paused, the realization hitting me like an axe in my neck. She had embarrassed me, left me standing at the altar with the eyes of the court upon me. Who gave a fairy's ass? The humiliation, the whispers, the pitying glances. None of it compared to the ache of wanting her, of needing her in a way that rose above politics and pride. She was no prize or a pawn, but a woman who had captured my heart without even trying.
Oh, please, Camille said, circling again, voice like broken glass. Don't lie and make this ugly.
Too late, came a voice behind me. I turned. Issa stood at the edge of the hall, no glamour to cover up what she truly was. Beautiful beyond measure, with her silver-ringed eyes full of fury. Camille's smile flickered, just for a second. Because she saw it then, too. This was no scared little runaway. This was power ready to be unleashed. Issa's voice cut like wind over ice. I don't need you to protect me, she said to me, voice steel and sky. But thanks for trying. Then she looked at Camille, unflinching. You can leave now. Camille bared her fangs. Issa smiled. And in that moment I remembered Faye didn't bluff. They burned. Camille didn't move. Neither did I. We stood like statues, two apex predators. One draped in silk, the other in a wrinkled nightshirt. Neither blinking, neither backing down.
Your whore is not worth it, Etan,
Camille said, gaze slicing through me.
That is not what she is, and that is not your call.
Etan said. The silver markings at his temples, the vampire equivalent of my noble fae markings, began to shimmer, responding to the magical current surging between us. I'd seen those markings in the ancient texts, but never in person. They only appeared when a noble vampire acknowledged their lineage power.
Do you realize what's happening?
Camille hissed, her eyes widening as she noticed the change.
The bond is forming on its own, without sanction, without witnesses.
Her voice carried genuine fear now.
Unsanctioned bonds between noble houses can trigger realm-wide magical disruptions.
She wasn't wrong. The old texts spoke of spontaneous bond formations, causing everything from localized weather anomalies to border collapses between realms. Our magic wasn't just personal, it was tied to the fabric of both our worlds. My magic pulsed beneath my skin, raw, real, awake. Even without my necklace, it responded to Etan's presence. The bond pulled at me, the unfinished markings on my forearm flaring with heat that felt like both invitation and warning. But Etan stood in front of her. My breath hitched. He was protecting her, from me. Does that mean he loves her? Was I just a distraction? I told myself I didn't care. But gods, I did. And here we were. His silence, a wall. His body, a line drawn between me and the woman who'd just called me a whore. And yes, I knew exactly who she was. Camille Nancroft. I recognized her scent from the missive Etan's grandmother had sent with the original bond proposal. Camille had helped broker that deal, and in trying to learn everything I could about the vampire I was meant to be bound to, I'd found out all the brew on her. They were tight. Very tight. Etan's coffin buddy, as the vampires called her. And if I was being honest, she was 50% of the reason I ran. My father's court had taught me more than enough about possessive power and transactional affection. Camille was the exact kind of cold cruelty I'd seen 1,000 times before. The one who would hold Etan's heart while I lapped up the scraps. I wasn't going to live that life. I took a step forward, and that's when I saw it. A shimmer across Camille's collarbone, not visible to the naked eye, but with face sight? It was clear. Twisting thorns, gray ink barely visible beneath glamour. No, not just thorns, the sigil of the ashen thorns. You're one of them, I said quietly, voice hardening. The ashen thorns. Etan turned sharply.
What?
She's branded, I said louder. Tattooed, right here. I gestured to the coiling mark. You can't see it unless you're fae-blooded or attuned to old, dirty magic. Camille's eyes flicked to mine. Just a flick, but it was enough. Etan's face drained of color.
That's impossible.
She's one of them, I said again. Etan, do you condone this? He didn't answer. Not at first. But the haunted look in his eyes said everything. Shock, betrayal, and the cold weight of realizing he'd missed something enormous. He shook his head, trying to break through the veil Camille had wrapped around him.
The Ashen Thorns were responsible for 3 terrorist attacks on mixed-species gatherings. The Queen herself condemned them. How could you, Camille?
Oh, come on.
Camille purred.
Some of us still believe in the natural order, separate courts, separate power. That's what the thorns stand for.
She smiled with venom.
And you running from your duty? That gave us exactly what we needed, a legitimate reason to void the treaty. Without your bond, the entire peace collapses.
You're a diplomat, I said. How can you play both sides?
I'm a realist.
Her smile thinned.
And you're a threat.
Because I wouldn't be owned?
Because you were supposed to be neutralized or claimed.
Her voice dropped to a hiss.
Instead, you've awakened a bond we can't control.
She reached into her pocket, pulled out a vial. Black liquid shimmered inside.
Void extract,
she said, smirking.
1 drop sears glamour, 2 cuts right to the core of fae magic.
The air thickened, frost laced the windows. My power, furious and unbound, rushed forward to meet hers. "You think threats make you powerful?" I asked, chin lifted. "You think poison gives you purpose?" Camille's hand trembled slightly, vial clenched between her fingers.
You don't scare me.
She spat. "I should," I whispered. "Because unlike you, I don't need poison to destroy what threatens me." Etan's power surged beside mine, dark and rising. Our bond seethed in the air, half-formed and feral. Camille's smile faltered. Because she saw it too. This wasn't politics. It wasn't a performance. It was power. True and ancient. And it terrified her. The unfinished bond marks on my arm burned. Our magics recognized what we were still denying. Across the room, the glass began to hum.
You're going to regret this,
Camille said to Etan, her last plea.
She's already a target for those who want the treaty to unravel. She'll make you weak.
Etan didn't flinch, didn't even glance Camille's way. Instead, he moved, slow and deliberate, placing himself fully in front of me, shoulders squared, one arm subtly outstretched in that instinctive way you guard something you're not willing to lose. His jaw tightened, the muscle there ticking once. There was a possessive heat in his stance, an unspoken vow in the way he angled his body toward mine like a shield.
She doesn't make me weak.
He said, voice steady and raw.
She makes me honest.
Gods, I felt it. Not just the words, the truth beneath them. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't a pawn. I was something worth protecting.
The council will hear about this,
Camille snapped, backing toward the door.
Unregistered bonds violate 17 protocols. The Queen will intervene.
Politics spun in my head. Alliances, implications, war. If we bonded outside court rule, we wouldn't be pawns. We'd be a center of power neither realm could claim.
The Queen will hear about your side hustle as well,
Etan said, gaze still locked on mine.
Now leave.
Camille's eyes flashed, a warning that this wasn't over. But she turned. Her heels clicked against the marble. Her cloak flared like fury. She didn't slam the door. She was the wind that closed it. And an ill wind? It always came back. Etan turned toward me fully, his expression pained. Of all the things I had faced since leaving my home, asking him if we were okay frightened me the most. He stepped closer, one step, then two.
I should be angry,
he said. I nodded.
but I'm not.
He added.
Because you're willing to fight for us.
I held his gaze. And you're not asking me to change? His hand came up, brushing my cheek with the backs of his fingers.
I like your sharp edges.
I've got a lot of them.
Good.
He stepped in, pressing his forehead to mine.
I want every one of them.
The bond marks on our arms seemed to pulse in tandem now, silver light rising beneath our skin. The ancient magic that had been interrupted months ago was seeking completion, drawing us together. If we do this, I whispered, there's no going back. Not just for us, but for everyone. We will heal our realms, bridging the divide that has kept our peoples apart for so long. But in doing so, we will also make enemies of those who want the treaty to fall, as it threatens the power they've carved out for themselves. His fingers traced the noble markings at my temples, his touch reverent.
I know the risks, Issa. I know the enemies we'll face. But I also know that I will stand by your side through it all. I will protect you with every ounce of my strength, with every beat of your heart. You are not just my bond, but my partner, my equal.
The weight of possibility stretched between us. I looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his commitment, the strength of his resolve. At that moment, I realized that I no longer wanted to keep running. I had found what I had always been searching for, a partnership that celebrated my worth rather than seeking to suppress it. The moment hovered, hot, thick, trembling. One look, searching each other's eyes and finding the answers, was all it took. Our mouths collided. No pretense, no hesitation. Just fire. He kissed me like I was the only thing anchoring him to the world, and I kissed him like he was the first breath after drowning. His hands were everywhere, my waist, my hair, fisting the hem of the shirt I wore. And when I reached up, let my fingers tangle in his curls and whispered his name, he groaned. Low, guttural, wrecked. And I knew. If I asked, he'd have me. His voice was rough.
Do you trust me?
I think I might. He exhaled a shaky laugh.
I'll take it.
I leaned in again, brushed my lips against his jaw. Then shut up and kiss me again. And he did. Gods, he did. As our lips met again, the bond marks flared with blinding light. Around us, the apartment trembled, books falling from shelves, glasses singing. The magic of noble fey blood and ancient vampire lineage, once forced together by politics, now joining willingly through choice, created something new and unprecedented. In that moment, I understood what my father had never grasped. True power wasn't in control or manipulation. It was in freedom, in choice, in finding your way back to what was meant for you all along. Chapter 12, Blood and Vows, Etan. Her mouth was a miracle. Soft, demanding, every kiss a silent dare. Come closer, want more, burn with me. And I did. I burned. Every part of me felt like it had been starved until Issa touched it. Fingers, mouth, her hips pressing into mine, her magic brushing my skin like a brand made of starlight. The incomplete bond marks on my forearm pulsed with renewed intensity, silver light spilling from the intricate patterns. Each time our skin touched, the magic surged, reaching for its silver counterpart on her arm. Ancient primal power recognized what we had denied for so long, that we were matched pairs, our bloodlines designed to intertwine across centuries. I slid my hand up under the hem of my shirt, now wrapped around her curves as if it belonged there. She gasped against my lips as I traced the bare skin beneath.
You're dangerous,
I whispered. Her breath hitched. No more than you. And then she grinned. Wild, unapologetic, fey to her bones. It shattered me. I pinned her back into the wall, my thigh sliding between hers, pressing myself against her in the most intimate way. I trailed kisses, hot and wet, down her throat. She was so damn sweet.
Issa.
My voice broke, raw with desire. I wanted to worship every inch of her, to lose myself in her ethereal beauty and the power that thrummed beneath her skin. But I hesitated, the primal need to claim her warring with the fear of breaking something so precious. She looked up at me, brown pupils blown wide, lips kiss-bruised. I'm not fragile, she said. Don't hold back. The air between us crackled with electricity, the fusion of vampire and fey magic creating something neither of our kinds had seen in generations. Small objects around the room began to levitate. Books, glasses, even the keys on the counter, suspended in the supernatural current generated by our connection. I could taste her magic now. Ancient forests and starlight, sweet and wild on my tongue. My own power responded. Darkness and blood-rich earth. Centuries of night-bound strength rising to meet her light. My control snapped. Hands braced on either side of her face, crowding her against the wall, letting her feel all of me. She arched deliciously, waiting for this exact kind of signal. Her glamour crackled, right down to the bones. One blink, and I saw her fully. Silver eyes, glowing skin, marks trailing down her arms, vines inked in moonlight. A noble fae in my arms, wanting me. Not because she had to, because she chose me. And I couldn't breathe from the weight of that. The glamour dissolved completely now, revealing her true form in all its ethereal glory. The noble markings at her temples pulsed with silver light, matching the rhythmic glow of my own ancestral marks. Her ears tapered to delicate points, and when she smiled, I caught the faintest hint of teeth too sharp to be human.
I can see you.
I whispered.
All of you.
She trembled beneath my touch. No one has seen me like this in months.
You're magnificent.
I breathed, feeling my fangs descend in response to her unveiled power. Not from hunger, from recognition, predator to predator. And that's when I knew why I hadn't fed from anyone in over a century. Not really. I'd tried, once or twice, with donors who smiled too eagerly and offered too much. But it was like chewing cardboard. No spark, no chemistry, no life. My kind called it the false feed, empty blood, sustenance without soul. With Issa, the need surged in me like a tide, not just to taste her, but to claim her, to drink in that wild, ancient magic laced through her veins and let it fill the hollow places I hadn't realized were starved.
I need you.
I rasped. She nodded. Then take me. And I did. We kissed like we'd die if we stopped, like this moment was carved out of time just for us. Clothes scattered, skin met skin. My mouth explored every curve and hollow, worshipping her body with a reverence that bordered on divine. Her hands mapped the planes of my back, nails dragging deliciously across my skin as she pulled me closer, desperate to eliminate any space between us. Pleasure, recognition, those 3 words we still had to say out loud, swirled in our bond marks, fusing our union. As we moved together, they began to glow brighter. Incomplete patterns straining toward completion. The bond, she gasped against my mouth. It's trying to complete itself. I could feel it too. The pull of something older than either of us. A magic that had connected noble bloodlines for millennia. But unlike the ceremony that had been planned for us, this was raw and unscripted, magic responding to genuine desire rather than calculated alliance. The windows rattled in their frames as the power built between us. Outside, I could hear the faint sound of wind chimes, though there was no breeze, the natural world responding to the supernatural event unfolding within these walls. My bed was too far, so was the couch 5 steps away. I took her against the wall. She swung her legs around me. When she gasped my name, something shifted. The air rippled. Magic surged. "Eden, please!" I knew what she was asking for. I wanted the same. I gave it my all, my everything. "Etan!" The way she lost herself, lips parted, head thrown back, eyes half closed, was my undoing. Our power snapped together like magnets sparking to life. The room exploded with silver light as our auras collided and merged. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching into infinity as our powers recognized each other, ancient and familiar despite our brief acquaintance in this life. Her nails dug into my back, my fangs grazed her throat. And in that wild, perfect moment, we bonded. Not a full blood vow, but enough for that moment. Time enough for more later. Decades, centuries, eons. My fangs pierced her skin, drawing just a single drop of her fey blood. Sweeter than any I'd ever tasted, laced ancient magic. At the same moment, she dragged her nail across my chest, creating a thin line of vampire blood that she pressed her fingers against. The exchange was minimal, but the effect was cataclysmic. The bond marks on our arms completed themselves, the broken patterns knitting together into intricate designs that spiraled up our forearms. Silver light pulsed beneath our skin, sealing the connection that had been waiting for months. The walls of my apartment shimmered as reality itself adjusted to accommodate the power of an unsanctioned, noble bond. In the distance, I heard the toll of bells, though whether real or magical I couldn't tell. I could sense her emotions now, a gentle hum beneath my own consciousness. Her wonder, her pleasure, her lingering fear. All of it flowed between us in a current of shared awareness, not mind reading, but something more intimate, soul recognition. The temperature in the room normalized as our magic settled into a balanced rhythm, no longer fighting for dominance but existing in perfect harmony. The objects that had been floating gently returned to their places, though several lights continued to flicker with residual energy. "I can feel you," she murmured, pressing her hand over her heart. "Here, like an echo." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Her presence had taken up residence within me, a warmth I could sense even with my eyes closed, the phantom sensation of a heartbeat, a rhythm I had almost forgotten. As a born vampire, I had lived my first 16 years with a beating heart, but those memories had faded over the centuries, lost to the endless march of time. Now, with Issa's essence intertwined with mine, I felt that echo of life once more, a reminder of the humanity I had left behind so long ago. It was both comforting and unsettling, a glimpse of the mortal existence I had traded for immortality. I held her close, savoring the feeling of her skin against mine, the way her fingers traced idle patterns across my chest. The weight of the repercussions hung silently between us, a looming threat that tainted this perfect moment.
The courts will know what happened.
I said quietly, fingers gliding over the now complete bond marks on her arm. They shimmered faintly, like moonlight stitched beneath our skin.
A spontaneous, noble bonding like this. It hasn't happened in centuries. It'll trigger old magic, rouse protocols buried in law, invoke questions.
My voice dropped.
Nobility doesn't just love. We build dynasties, forge power. Our unions shape realms. We don't get to do things quietly or freely.
I felt her breath against my chest. Her voice, soft but unshaken, slipped through the stillness. We didn't shatter the treaty. We honored it, just not in the way they scripted. I smiled against her hair, feeling the rightness of her logic. Things would shift dramatically for us in the coming days, but all I cared about was her in my arms, our magic intertwined, and how the universe itself seemed to exhale in relief that what was meant to be had finally come to pass. Chapter 13. The morning after. Issa. He was still asleep. One arm slung across my waist, his breath warm against my neck. Curled in sheets that smelled like him. Cedar, smoke, something darker I couldn't name. And all I could think was, what the hell have I done? Because it wasn't just intimacy. Not when our magic had tangled. Not when his blood sang to mine now, whispering mine, mine, mine every time his fingertips brushed my skin. He stirred beside me, nose brushing my shoulder.
You're awake.
I should go, I whispered. Tell my father that the bond has been completed before he hears it from someone else.
Don't go alone,
he said, barely awake.
I will go with you.
I turned to look at him. Hair tousled, eyes half-lidded and soft in a way I'd never seen. It did dangerous things to my heart, stirring feelings I had tried so hard to resist. But at that moment, I knew I had already fallen for him. Etan, He placed 2 fingers gently over my lips, still swollen from his kisses. His touch was reverent, steady.
I love you, Iselin Morwyn.
He said, voice low, sure.
I love you in every realm, in every version of us, in every lifetime we find our way back.
My breath caught in my throat, my heart swelling with a love I could no longer deny. I leaned in, capturing his lips in a tender kiss. As we parted, I whispered, I was going to tell you I love you too. He grinned, a mischievous glint in his eyes.
No way I was going to let you say it first and lord it over me for centuries to come.
Are you sure that you don't have any regrets? I asked, stupidly.
Only that I didn't kiss you sooner.
God, I could have melted. Instead, I sat up, dragging the sheet with me. We have a lot to discuss. Living arrangements, household chores, leaving the toilet seat down. Etan chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He pulled me down, nuzzling my neck.
I'll never tire of your smart mouth, Issa. It's one of the many things I love about you.
As much as I wanted to melt into him, I sighed, the weight of reality settling on my shoulders. I'm not looking forward to telling my father, and especially my brothers, about us. They're a lot older, but when they're around me, They can be overprotective. I'm worried about their reaction and the fallout in my realm. He reached out, brushed a curl behind my ear.
Isa, I will handle anything they throw at us. We are in this together, right?
That question, it should have been simple. But it cracked something deep, something I'd spent too long sealing behind silence and strength. I wanted to say yes. Gods, I wanted to say it and mean it. Instead, a single tear fell. Ice blue. He saw it. And that was what undid me. Because he didn't step back, distance himself. He reached for me with that steady, unshaken calm, holding my sorrow instead of fearing it. I tried to explain, voice barely there. Fae, tears don't fall easy. Not unless the grief's been steeping for years. He didn't speak. Just wrapped his arms around me. Gentle, grounding. And for the second time in 100 years, someone helped me without asking for a piece in return. Etan. I didn't cry again. But I didn't pull away either. Because right then, for one breathless, terrifying moment, I believed in us, that nothing would separate me from him, ever. But before I could gather my thoughts, before I could answer, a sharp trill cut through the quiet. Eden's scry phone buzzed on the nightstand, its glow pulsing with urgency. He sighed, reaching for it.
It's my grandmother.
I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest, heart pounding. The woman who had a part in making me a pawn was on the line. What could she want? He nodded, swiping to answer.
Etan here.
The Sinclair estate rose out of the trees like a fortress that had forgotten it was once a home. Stark, cold beauty sculpted in onyx and white stone, it perched at the edge of the cliffs, overlooking the gray sea. A sharp contrast to the Fae courts I grew up in. Where ours bloomed with flora and shimmered with enchantment, this place felt carved from old bone and legacy. Even the air was watchful. I stepped out of the car, wrapping my arms tightly around myself despite the fine midnight blue wrap dress Etan had bought for me. It was elegant, soft against my skin, but my nerves had made me cold. My boots clicked too loudly against the polished obsidian path winding through the gardens. Etan took my hand as we neared the towering front steps. He'd changed into a slate gray suit, open-collared, sleeves rolled. Still sharp, still in control. But I could feel the tension coiled under his skin.
Wait in the garden, I won't be long, I promise.
He said under his breath.
The wards aren't very kind to Fae, but you will be safe.
Etan had explained during the ride over that it was best if he dealt with the wrath of his grandmother alone. She tended to be more receptive to reason when not faced with the object of her displeasure. Etan relayed a rather gruesome story of how she had once dismembered a messenger with her bare hands.
She won't like that I brought you.
He paused, turning to face me.
But she won't hurt you, not here.
Not here, not yet. Embarrassing a vampire had consequences I had yet to pay. I understand, I said softly. He nodded once, brushing his fingers across my knuckles. Comfort or apology, I wasn't sure. The garden was pristine, perfectly symmetrical, a mirror of itself in every direction, with silver-glassed roses and marble benches that never collected dust. The scent of midnight peonies hung heavy in the air. It was too controlled, too cold. It reminded me of everything I'd run from. For him, I could stay a century in this place. Etan looked back once as he ascended the steps. His face had gone still, mask slipping into place. But I saw the crack in it, the flicker of something protective and raw behind his eyes. He was worried. So was I. And neither of us knew what Etan's grandmother really wanted. Chapter 14. Ultimatums. Etan. Grandmother's study always felt like walking into a predator's den. All dark wood, old books, and the faint scent of blood and roses. She sat behind her desk like a queen on a throne. Elegant and still, as if she'd been carved from the same obsidian as the manor walls. Her silver hair swept into a perfect chignon, not a strand out of place. her skin pale as moonlight, barely a wrinkle despite her 7 centuries. My Gammy, the architect of vampire-fae relations for the past few centuries. The reason Issa and I had been promised to each other.
Grandmother.
I greeted, using a more formal title and not bothering with the customary kiss on her cheek. She didn't rise, just studied me with those piercing gray eyes that missed nothing.
You've completed the bond.
Her voice was soft, dangerous.
Without witnesses, without sanction, without permission.
Not a question, a judgment.
I didn't need permission.
You needed protocol.
She snapped, the first crack in her composure.
This bond wasn't just about you.
I folded my arms.
The bond happened exactly as it should have, between 2 people who chose it.
Chose?
Her laughter was sharp as broken glass.
You think this was a choice?
Doesn't matter what it was. Fact is, we bonded on our terms.
Through my bond with Issa, I could feel her tension spike in the garden. She was listening, not with her ears, but through our connection. Feeling every word, every emotion.
Do you have any idea what you've done?
She asked, rising finally.
The treaty requires a witnessed bonding, with ritual and acknowledgement from both courts.
She slammed her palm on the desk, the rare display of temper revealing just how deeply I'd disrupted her plans.
Without the proper ceremony, this bond exists in a dangerous gray area, legally unrecognized, magically unstable.
Before I could answer, a shimmering portal opened in the corner of the room, a swirl of emerald and silver light that carried the scent of wild forests and ancient power. I knew who it was before he stepped through. Gavin of the Summer Court, High Noble of the Eastern Fey Realms, Issa's father. He was magnificent and terrible, tall and broad-shouldered, with the same silver-ringed eyes as his daughter. His hair was darker, though, nearly black, swept back from a face that seemed carved from living marble. The noble markings at his temples glowed with barely contained fury.
Vasilia.
He greeted my grandmother with cold formality before turning those piercing eyes on me.
So, this is the vampire who stole my daughter's choice.
I felt the hair rise on the back of my neck, a primal response to the raw power emanating from him. Through our bond, I felt Issa's fear spike, then her resolve harden.
Sir,
I said, offering the bare minimum of required respect.
I didn't steal anything. Issa made her own choice.
Did she?
His voice was like thunder contained in silk.
After running for months to avoid this very bond? After hiding her identity, changing her name, abandoning her heritage?
He took a step closer, the air crackling with ancient fey magic.
Or did you trap her, force her hand?
My fangs descended involuntarily, a response to the threatening proximity of such powerful fey energy.
If you knew your daughter at all, you'd know no one forces her hand.
A dangerous smile curved his lips.
At least we agree on that.
The bond is incomplete.
My grandmother interjected, seeming to regain her composure.
Formed in private, without the necessary rituals, without court recognition.
It is not incomplete.
I growled.
My arm proves it is not.
Gavin's eyes widened slightly, the first genuine reaction I'd seen from him.
Show me,
he demanded. I yanked up my sleeve. The silver markings pulsated with unmistakable magic, ancient symbols of connection that had linked fey and vampire bloodlines for millennia.
Look at the marks.
I said, practically shoving my forearm into their faces.
They're fully formed. The bond is done.
He studied them in silence. Gammy did too.
Remarkable,
Gavin murmured, and I caught the faintest hint of something beyond anger. Perhaps respect, carefully concealed.
The patterns completed without the ritual, without the witnesses, without the blood exchange performed under the full moon.
They did,
I said quietly. Gavin straightened, his noble presence filling the room.
Regardless, this places my daughter in an untenable position. Without witnesses, without formal recognition, she will be shunned by noble fey and vampire alike, questioned, challenged, her safety and standing compromised.
I bristled.
I can protect her.
Can you?
He asked, his tone almost pitying.
Against the entire supernatural world? Against those who will claim this bond illegitimate? Against those who believe the treaty can now be challenged?
This changes nothing about the treaty.
I insisted, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't entirely true. My grandmother's smile was cold.
It changes everything, my dear boy. The treaty was built on a witnessed, sanctioned bond between our houses. Without that public declaration, the foundation is weakened.
Then we'll have the damn ceremony.
I snapped, frustration boiling over.
Make it official. Bring your witnesses. Have your rituals. But understand this.
I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous register.
Issa is my bondmate, not a political tool, not a treaty token. She is mine as I am hers, and I don't give a damn what anyone thinks of that.
Something flickered in Gavin's eyes, a brief, startling spark that might have been approval.
My daughter has always been willful.
He said slowly.
Like her mother, it seems she has found her match in stubbornness.
I felt Issa's surprise ripple through our bond. Her father rarely spoke of her mother, and never so open, so raw.
2 days.
Gavin announced abruptly.
We will hold the proper ceremony in 2 days' time, at the boundary between our realms, as tradition dictates, with all necessary witnesses and rituals.
That's not possible.
My grandmother protested.
The preparations alone.
2 days.
He repeated, his tone brooking no argument.
Or I will work to withdraw the Fey courts from the treaty entirely.
An uncomfortable silence settled over the room.
This isn't what we planned,
My grandmother finally said, her voice brittle with control.
Plans change.
I replied.
The outcome is the same. The bond is formed. The treaty holds. All that remains is the ceremony.
And what of Camille Mancroft?
My grandmother asked, her gaze sharp.
She filed a formal complaint with the Vampire Council this morning. Claims of treaty violations. Accusations regarding your relationship with the Fey noble.
At the mention of Camille's name, the bond with Issa grew faint, like a distant echo. It was as if she had suddenly withdrawn, her presence in my mind dimming to a flicker. A sense of unease settled in my chest, but I pushed it aside, focusing on the matter at hand. My jaw clenched. Camille would never come between us again.
The Queen's trusted liaison is a member of the Ashen Thorns. She has her own agenda.
Gavin's expression darkened.
The terrorist faction? You allowed such a person close to my daughter?
I didn't know what she was.
I admitted.
Not until yesterday.
Convenient,
He said coldly.
Irrelevant.
I countered.
I sent a missive informing the Queen of her liaison's treachery. She will make an example out of her. If she wants to keep her throne, that is. Besides, the bond speaks for itself.
I gestured to my marked arm.
It's done, and since most noble houses have prospered under the treaty, they won't take kindly to those who threaten that stability. The Queen will face pressure to act decisively against Camille and her faction.
Frustration bubbled in my chest. This political maneuvering, these games within games, they were exactly why Issa had run in the first place. Why she'd hidden for so long.
If you'll excuse me,
I said, not bothering to wait for permission.
Issa is waiting in the garden.
I turned to leave, ignoring my grandmother's sharp intake of breath at such blatant disrespect.
Etan.
She called after me.
We are not finished here.
I paused at the door.
For now we are.
As I strode down the corridor, Gavin's voice drifted after me.
Vampire.
I turned, meeting his gaze.
My daughter deserves to be cherished, protected. See that you remember that.
There was warning in his voice, but also something else. A father's concern, buried beneath centuries of noble obligation.
On that,
I replied.
we are in complete agreement.
I descended the grand staircase, the weight of the confrontation heavy on my shoulders, but determination burning in my veins. In 2 days, we would stand before both courts, make official what magic had already sealed. But first, I needed to tell Issa, to hold her, to assure her that we would face the next steps together. I pushed open the heavy doors that led to the garden, stepping out into the crisp air, my eyes searching for that flash of midnight blue fabric, for wild curls and silver-ringed eyes. No Isa sitting on the bench where I'd left her, no trace of her scent on the wind. Just the faintest residue of magic, not Fae. Something darker lingered, smoke after a fire. Panic surged through me, cold and sharp. I reached for our bond, searching for that warm presence I'd grown accustomed to feeling in my mind. It was there, but distant, muffled, as if something was interfering with our connection.
Isa!
I shouted, not caring who heard the naked fear in my voice. Behind me, I felt rather than heard my grandmother and Isa's father emerge from the house, drawn by my cry.
The wards,
my grandmother whispered, her composure finally truly shattered. Her eyes widened with a realization that sent a chill down my spine.
They've been breached.
I reached out with my senses, desperately searching for any trace of Isa's presence. But the only thing I felt was the fading echo of our bond, stretching thin like a fraying rope. The truth hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I could no longer deny it. Isa was gone, taken by someone powerful enough to breach the strongest magical protections in the vampire realm.
My daughter.
Gavan said, his voice a terrible quiet thing.
Where is my daughter?
I had no answer. I felt like I couldn't breathe, my lungs constricting in my chest. The thought of Isa in danger, of someone daring to take her from me, filled me with a rage I had never known. My hands curled into fists, nails digging bloody crescent moons into my palms. I would find her, no matter the cost. And those who had taken her would learn the true meaning of vampire wrath. Chapter 15. Gone, Isa. The first twinge of wrongness came too late. Magic brushed the edge of my senses, subtle, foul, coiling through the garden like smoke with a bite. Not natural, not ambient. This wasn't ward magic. This was invasive, cruel. I turned, heart vaulting into my throat, but I wasn't fast enough. A blur of motion shot from behind the hedgerow. Cold hands seized my arms, fangs flashed. I reacted on instinct. My elbow cracked against a jaw with satisfying resistance. The vampire grunted. I twisted, planted my boot against his ribs and shoved. He stumbled back, just a bit. He was probably old enough to have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. My magic tried to rise and flailed like a fish on a deck. Again. I hadn't told Etan, but the moment I stepped into his grandmother's garden, something shifted. My power grew frayed, brittle, as if the air itself filtered it out. The Sinclair wards weren't just old, they were selective. Fae weren't welcome here, not fully. And I was paying for it. He growled.
Bindare.
Enchanted thread lashed from his fingers, snapping tight around my wrists. Another wound around my throat, pulsing with suppression magic that hissed against my skin like oil on fire. Not tight, not yet, but tightening. Etan will kill you for this, I snarled, struggling against the bonds. The vampire smirked, saliva already slicking his lips.
He won't have time.
Then the world folded. The garden vanished in a blink of shadows and wind. Magic dragged me, yanked me through rips in space so sharp I felt them in my bones. My stomach dropped, my thoughts scattered. And then, stone. Cold, hard bruising. I hit the floor of a chamber that reeked of damp magic and old fear. The air buzzed with enchantments, layered, volatile. Candlelight flickered from sconces along the curved walls, each flame throwing shapes that danced too long in the corners of my eyes. It was a room meant to unsettle. And at the center? Camille. Flawless. Framed in silk and spite, fangs tipped red from the dead human sprawled at her feet. A woman, naked. Frozen smile on her face. Bile rose in my throat, burning the back of it.
Well, well,
Camille drawled, circling like a panther.
the little stray is finally caught.
I didn't flinch. Wouldn't give her the pleasure. You're really this desperate? Her eyes narrowed, lips curling.
Don't flatter yourself, darling. This isn't about you. It's about honor.
She crouched beside me, nails tapping the stone.
You don't belong in our world. You don't deserve him. You're a pretty distraction, a blemish on a centuries-old bloodline.
I laughed, bitter and bright. Etan's bloodline? You mean the one he's rewriting without your name on it? Her face faltered for just a breath, a crack in the porcelain.
You think he loves you?
She hissed, voice thinner now, cutting.
You're nothing but a novelty, a rebellion. He'll come back to me. He always does, for decades.
I smiled slowly, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. Oh, Camille, I said, voice low. Seems your time has run out. Etan's not rebelling. He's choosing. That's what burns you most, isn't it? That even with all your centuries, all your cultivated charm, he doesn't want you. Her eyes darkened. Her nails pressed harder against the stone, scraping faint lines into the floor.
You think?
She said, her tone low and lethal.
Then let's see if he still wants you when there's nothing left to want.
I didn't answer, because I wasn't stalling anymore. I was counting. Etan would find me, maybe with an army, maybe alone. But most importantly, I would save myself. My magic, though choked, was still mine. And something inside me had begun to rise. A warmth. No, not warmth, fire. Not from the pendant. That was gone. Ripped from me by a thief with no idea what he'd taken. But the ember that had always glowed when I touched it? It wasn't gone. It had found something else to burn for. Etan's voice in my mind, his arms pulling me close, his choice. Love. The thread of my magic pulled tight, slowly building like a tornado in the sky, devastating in its fury. Chapter 16. The Hunt, Etan. The moment I couldn't feel her, really feel her, my heart turned to ice. The bond between us had solidified, and that meant I could sense her emotions, her magic, until suddenly I couldn't. And that silence, it was deafening. I was already pulling out my scry phone. The Sinclair name wasn't just legacy, it was legend, old magic and older money. The family tree stretched back to the founding of the Accord, with roots deep in blood oaths and realm-forged treaties. When a Sinclair heir made a move, entire courts paused to see which way the wind would turn. We didn't bluff, we didn't beg, we burned things down and built empires in the ashes. Someone had just dragged my future out from under me. I wouldn't rest until I found Isa and destroyed them. First call, Eddie. He answered on the third ring. Background noise thick with laughter and something clinking. Glasses, maybe. Then a woman's voice, low and sweet, filtered through.
Eddie?
I snapped. The laughter cut off.
Em, what's up?
I need you, now.
A beat of silence. Then his voice sharpened, all flirt vanished.
What happened?
Isa's gone, taken.
Another beat.
I'm in Lockhold. I'll see you in 10.
He hung up. Larkhold by bike was 30 minutes. 40 if traffic was horrible. He must be running. I stared at the phone for a second. Eddie didn't ask for details, didn't hesitate, just moved. That was who he was. During our last year at New Havens, I'd nearly gotten expelled over a duel that ended with a shattered dorm tower and a nearly dead rival. Eddie cleaned the blood, convinced the witness they were wrong in their recollections, and made sure the headmaster thought I'd been hexed. I still owed him. Scott was next. He answered before the first ring ended.
I know, I'm coming.
I wasn't surprised. Scott was more than a strategist, more than the quiet celestial who drank his coffee with 2 drops of holy water and color-coded his wrath. He'd bonded himself to me and Eddie after the murders, said we were the only family he had left, said he would keep us safe, no matter the realm or the cost. If something went wrong in our lives, Scott felt it like a celestial wound, and he never let us bleed alone. Between the 3 of us, we could take down a council chamber or charm one into giving us the keys to the territory. It was that balance, power, loyalty, and fear, that kept us ahead of everyone else. And if someone thought taking Issa wouldn't trigger all of it, they didn't know what kind of fire they'd just invited. I set the phone down, but my hand didn't unclench. The world was too damn quiet. Her scent still clung to my jacket, faint and teasing, like a ghost daring me to chase it. And I would. Gods, I would burn territories for her if I had to. I walked to the bench she'd sat on, waiting for me. Our bond was a scry call from another realm, fuzzy and growing more convoluted by the minute. With each passing second, the certainty grew in my gut. She was running out of time. I'd lived through betrayals, assassins, court politics that would make most mortals weep. But nothing had ever cracked me like the thought of Issa afraid and alone somewhere. The very idea of her in danger, her light dimmed by the shadows of those who sought to harm her, sent a shard of ice through my heart, freezing it from the inside out. I stormed back through the estate, shadows snapping behind me with every step. Marble echoed underfoot. I found Gammy in the library with an old tome in her hand. Fury burned in my throat. The current queen had risen to power during the last vampire uprising, seizing the opportunity created by a war between 2 rival houses that were almost as strong as the Sinclairs. As they fought each other to the point of mutual destruction, the queen slipped in and claimed the throne for herself. It was during this time that my parents died on a diplomatic trip to another territory. I had been staying with Gammy when it happened. Paid assassins, a mix of humans and werewolves, burned the old mansion to the ground. We would have been caught in the blaze, but Gammy's quick thinking saved us. She wrapped me in a blackout tarp, bundled me into a human car, and drove for hours, shielding my entire body from the sun's deadly rays. Her skin blistered, and her arm was nearly lost to the burn, but she never winced or showed any sign of pain. She protected me like I was her last purpose in life. I trusted Gammy with my life and the most precious thing to have come into it, but I had to know if she had any involvement in Issa's disappearance.
Gammy.
I said, voice a whip.
You didn't have anything to do with it.
I said, not a question, not yet.
No.
She snapped, then again, icier.
No, I had no idea she had been taken, that the wards had been breached.
That scared me more than anything. My grandmother knew everything.
I'm going to bleed the witch who enchanted them,
she said coldly.
Slowly, she charged a fortune and delivered nothing.
My blood went cold. If Gammy had missed something, if someone slipped past her gaze, this wasn't just a breach. It was a message.
She's mine.
I said, chest tight.
I will get her back.
And you're mine,
she said.
That still means something.
The door behind us opened. Eddie stepped in, breath ragged, blonde waves plastered to his temples.
Hey,
he said.
Any news?
We're working on it,
I said. Gammy looked tense but remained calm.
How can I help you, Etan?
once I get her back.
I told her.
Just give us some space.
Gammy nodded.
I'll talk to her father. You'll have as long as you need.
I nodded back, stiff but sincere. It was the only thank you I could manage. I glanced at her again, at the iron poise, the spine made of legacy and ice. Would I become like that if I lived as long? No. Not with Issa by my side. That was why I had to bring her back. 5 minutes later, Scott, Eddie, and I stood in the garden where she'd vanished. The spot still shimmered faintly with disturbed magic. Scott knelt, one palm brushing the grass. He murmured a phrase I didn't catch. Old Celestial. The air shimmered, a faint hum rising from the earth, threading through the tips of his fingers.
There was a scuffle.
He said, his eyes glowing faint silver.
She fought, hard, but then binding spell, from a signature I recognize.
He looked up and I could see the shift behind his normally unreadable expression.
I know who he is.
Scott said, tone absent of all light.
He's a contracted thug, works freelance for hire, vampire, minor court, goes by Sigric. I've crossed paths with him before, slippery bastard.
Eddie cracked his knuckles.
Not slippery enough.
We were already moving. Sigric's lair was exactly what you'd expect from a lowlife trying to fake high lineage. Over-glamoured charm slapped on modest stone, mismatched enchantments scrawled into the outer walls like he got a discount on security spells. A few even glimmered with counterfeit sigils, clearly meant to misdirect. Didn't matter. To us, they were made of tissue paper. Scott went in first, his palm flaring with celestial light, tight and controlled. The instant it hit the threshold, the glamour shattered like glass under holy fire. Eddie was a step behind, shouldering through the door and kicking it off its hinges with a satisfying crunch.
Subtle.
I muttered.
I don't do subtle.
He growled, baring teeth. I followed, death coiled around my words.
Where is she?
Sigric was already on his knees, breath ragged, one hand curled around a scorched wrist where Scott's light had burned through his wards like butter. His fangs were half extended, but there was no fight in his eyes, just panic.
I don't know.
Eddie hauled him up by the collar and slammed him against the stone wall hard enough to rattle it.
Try again,
he said, voice coated in menace.
I was paid.
Sigric wheezed.
Just to grab her, not to hold her.
By who?
I demanded, every inch of me vibrating with the need to tear him apart.
Camille!
He gasped, pink tears leaking from his eyes.
Camille wanted her gone, said she was a liability, said she'd ruined something sacred.
Scott moved forward, voice ice calm but final.
He's done talking.
Abduction had always been the line for Scott, even before his wife and daughter were stolen from him. Afterward, that line became a blade. Eddie didn't flinch.
Then, let's make sure he doesn't walk away.
I nodded once at Scott, silent, a signal. I was too wound up for a clean kill. Eddie wouldn't care. He'd call it justice and wipe his hands on a napkin. But me? I didn't want the sight of gore to be what Issa remembered when I saw her next. Scott stepped closer.
I'll make it clean.
Wait!
Sigric pleaded, eyes wild.
I have money.
With a flick of my wrist, I cast a stasis spell on Sigric. His body jerked upward, suspended in midair, limbs frozen in a grotesque parody of his last desperate plea. His mouth hung slack, words cut off by the sudden paralysis. Scott's hand rose, fingers glowing with pure celestial fire. Not golden, not divine, but silver bright, holy retribution stripped of mercy. The light slid across Sigric's chest like silk, and then pierced straight through him. There was no scream, just silence, final and sharp. He crumbled like ash. Eddie exhaled, stretching his shoulders.
Nothing wrong with a neat kill,
he muttered.
Didn't feel like picking flesh from my teeth anyway.
I didn't reply. My mind was already racing ahead. I turned to Scott.
Can you track her?
He closed his eyes, kneeling low. One palm brushed the soot and stone.
Yes, she left a trail.
Hope surged like blood through dry veins. We were coming, and we were bringing payback with us. Chapter 17. Reckoning. Issa. The bindings pulsed with dampening runes, old magic, dirty, sloppy, but ancient, and insidious enough to hold. For the time being, my wrists ached, my head throbbed like thunder behind my eyes. My magic, already dulled by the Sinclair estate's wards, was still dampened by the bonds. But not for long. I could feel it creeping back, slow but steady, like a reel winding in reverse. Camille paced before me, her heels clipping sharply against the stone. Her smile was all fang and venom, the kind you wore when rehearsing a kill. She was winding herself up, feeding her rage, convincing herself I deserved whatever came next. She'd have to do a thorough job. Fae weren't easy to kill. Unlike vampires, who could be killed through beheading, Fae were more resilient. They could live on in the afterrealm, and the only way to completely destroy them was to consume their heart. It required a fair amount of skill because, until the heart was totally devoured, the Fae could use their magic to try and win it back. Camille would have to catch me unaware to succeed. And that was fine by me. Because the longer she spouted her villain monologue, the more time I had to get free.
You fooled me, I'll give you that. Your father's representative said you were a quiet girl, ready to do your duty and fade in the background. You forgot your place. I'm here to see you put back in it permanently.
She hissed, crimson flickering in her gaze.
Even if I have to get my hands dirty and do it myself.
I said nothing, and she hated that.
You think because Etan let you into his bed you matter?
She crouched, her fingers clamping around my chin, cold, bruising.
You don't. You're a novelty, a game.
I stared at her.
Then why are you so scared?
The slap was fast, sharp. The copper tang of blood hit my tongue.
You think you've won him?
She snapped.
Takes more than a soft smile and a magic trick. He will tire of you, they always do.
Like he did with you? I said, voice honeyed with acid. Must sting. The temperature dropped. The smile cracked.
You don't get to take him from me.
She seethed. You never had him. That did it. She lunged. But that was when I felt it. The bond. The moment Etan kissed me. When we chose each other. A new tether had formed. The suppression magic pulsed again, trying to push me down. But it was too late. My fingers found the weak spot in the enchanted bindings. There was always one. The flaw in the weave, the seam where intention faltered. I was Issa, daughter of storms, born of thorns and starlight. And if Camille thought she'd broken me, she was about to learn the hard way. Fae didn't break. We burned. The bindings pulsed, cracked. And my power rose. Slow at first, like ice breaking under moonlight, then faster, fierce. I screamed, wordless and raw, and let go. The room ignited. Light, blinding, silver white, erupted from my core. It wasn't beauty. It wasn't elegance. It was truth. The bindings exploded, the air shattered. And I stood. Magic burned through me, wild and glorious. The wards around this death chamber shattered like fragile glass. Camille backed up, eyes wide.
No.
You made a mistake, I said, my voice layered, an echo amplified in the darkest of caves. You thought I was a pawn. The walls trembled, the shadows recoiled. She charged. I raised both arms and unleashed. The blast hurled her like a rag doll, slamming her into the far wall with the force of a thunderclap. She crumpled, ash already curling from her skin. I stepped forward, unleashed a second wave, pure, raw, and final. She screamed. Then she was gone, turned into a pile of ash. The room trembled, and I fell to my knees. I don't know how long I remained in that position before the door burst open. Etan was first, his eyes locked on mine, wild, frantic, then wide with relief.
Issa,
he whispered, sliding beside me. His hands gripped my arms, my face, as if grounding himself.
you're okay?
I nodded. I handled it. Eddie stepped over what was left of Camille.
No.
He said, nudging the pile of ash with his boot.
We may have a bit of a problem. Crispy Critter here was the Queen's pet.
Scott surveyed the chamber, gaze calm but dark.
The Queen's going to want answers.
Etan pulled me into his arms. I collapsed into him, bone-tired and brimming with fire.
Then we'll give them.
He said, his tone made up of steel cushioned by cashmere.
Together.
Chapter 18. Judgment. Etan. The vampire court was beauty carved from menace. Vines coiled around obsidian columns like they had a will of their own. Moonlight filtered in through impossible angles, casting iridescent patterns across the marble floor that shifted when you weren't looking. The air shimmered, just a little too still, like it was listening. We stood in the center of the throne hall, Isa beside me, her chin lifted in defiance despite the exhaustion curling behind her silver-ringed eyes. Scott and Eddie flanked us, one calm and calculating, the other ready to rip through anyone who breathed wrong. On the throne, the queen sat, regal, eternal, elegant. Her eyes glittered like collapsing stars, holding the weight of centuries and the promise of judgment. Ancient power cloaked her in something more than silk, something that whispered, "You are seen, and you will be judged." Then, from the shadows behind her, two figures stepped forward. First, Isa's father, Gavin. His ceremonial robes shimmered with metallic thread, every line of his tunic stitched with ancient runes. His silver circlet gleamed beneath the soft light, an unmistakable mark of fey nobility. Isa's breath hitched, a sharp inhale she tried to hide at the sight of him. The second figure moved more silently, Gammy Sinclair. Her gown was slate gray and laced with crimson, severe and immaculate. Her silver hair swept into a crown of coils that could cut glass. She stood like the war queen she'd always been, carved from iron and purpose. Their presence meant one thing. This wasn't just a political scolding, it was a reckoning.
"I hear,"
the queen said, her voice silk-wrapped steel,
"that you four killed my liaison. What say you?"
Scott stepped forward, spine straight.
Your liaison ambushed a noble fae, a Sinclair bond on vampire soil. She was bound, abducted, and nearly executed. Isa defended herself.
He emphasized Sinclair. The queen's gaze narrowed. Even she wouldn't go to war with my house lightly. Not with how deep our roots ran. Not with how many old debts still lingered in the dark. Eddie shrugged.
Isa turned her into glittery ash. It was a thing.
The queen's gaze snapped to Isa.
"And you did not bring her before me, you destroyed her."
Isa's voice was quiet but unwavering. She tried to kill me. I did what I had to. The queen stood. The air thickened. Every courtier in the room went silent. Even the vines outside stilled. It was as if the very fabric of the court held its breath.
"In light of the treaty,"
she said,
"I will allow this one transgression."
Her eyes sharpened, starlight edged in warning.
"But make no mistake, next time there will be consequences, severe ones."
Isa dipped her head. "Understood, Your Majesty." Then the queen's gaze flicked to Isa's father.
"See that she understands, Gavin."
Without a backward glance, she swept out of the courtroom. My grandmother followed, mask in place as always. The queen had requested a private audience, and though Gammy said nothing, I felt the tension radiating off her like frost. Whatever was about to be said behind those closed doors would ripple far beyond them. As their silhouettes vanished through the archway, the hush that had gripped the court broke like a dam. Laughter bubbled up, applause followed, and soon the chamber swelled with the murmur of 100 conversations. Nobles came forward in clusters, offering blessings, words of praise, small bows, and well-worn platitudes. And while the words may have dulled from repetition, the sentiment still warmed something in my chest. Perhaps not everyone saw our union as a scandal, but not all the smiles were kind. Here and there, scattered like rot beneath a fresh bloom, were those who made no attempt to mask their disapproval. tightly formed clusters of whispering mouths and narrowed eyes. I didn't need to hear them to know what they said. They spoke of broken protocol, of threat, of bloodlines crossed without permission. These were the ones we'd need to watch. Not now, later. When no one was clapping. When the lights dimmed and ambition returned to the surface like a predator. Their resentment would not stay dormant for long. Gavan stepped forward, slow, deliberate. In his hand, a chain glinted, swaying faintly like it carried the weight of more than just silver. Isa tensed beside me. Her breath caught, her gaze locked on the pendant as if it had torn a hole through time.
This is yours, daughter.
Gavin said, voice suspiciously sheepish. He just placed it in her hand, fingers closing gently around hers in a touch that carried apology, and maybe the beginning of something like atonement. Isa stared, and something in my chest twisted. The pendant that was stolen. Her father had it the entire time. He probably did it to weaken her, make her compliant. The thought formed like a bitter ache in my chest, a knot of anger and suspicion that tightened with each passing second. Gavin's eyes softened, a flicker of emotion passing behind the ancient depths.
I don't think you need it anymore.
He said, his voice gentle, almost reverent.
Your signature is stronger than I've ever seen it.
He clasped his hands before him, fingers interlacing in a gesture that seemed both vulnerable and resolute. Gavin looked pained, his brow furrowing, and his lips pressing into a thin line, in a way I didn't think Fae were allowed to be. It was as if he were wrestling with a weight that even his immortal soul found heavy.
I had you watched, daughter, protected.
His voice wavered, just slightly, and he took a steadying breath.
But when the abduction happened, I failed.
The admission seemed to cost him, his shoulders sagging beneath the burden of his words.
The Sinclair wards, strong as they are, require finesse to breach. My guard couldn't reach you in time.
Isa's eyes widened, a flicker of hurt and betrayal dancing across her face, before she schooled her features into a mask of calm. She stood a little straighter, her chin lifting as if to counterbalance the weight of her father's revelation. "You had me followed?" she asked, her voice steady, but with an undercurrent of reproach that cut through the air like a blade.
Yes.
His tone held no apology.
And I was proud of how you handled yourself. Even under pressure, you stayed true to yourself. Your mother would have been proud too.
A single tear slipped down Isa's cheek. Ice blue, honest. "Thank you, Father." He nodded.
Come home when you're ready. Your brothers are eager to meet your bond.
The way he looked at me said they weren't just eager. They had opinions. Then he turned to Scott.
I would speak with you.
Scott blinked.
Me?
We all looked at each other, uncertain. Scott followed. They spoke across the chamber, close, intense. We watched Scott's face change, first to shock, then to something else. Anger. Real anger. I'd never seen it on him before. Eddie leaned in.
What the hell was that?
Scott returned, quiet, jaw set.
What did he say?
I asked. Scott looked away.
I need time.
Scott.
When I'm ready,
he said, his tone dark and lethal.
I'll let you know.
We didn't press. But a storm had begun. We just didn't know it at the time. Chapter 19, What Comes After, Isa. The city lights blurred through the conveyance window, the hum of traffic a soft white noise beneath my thoughts. Etan hadn't let go of my hand since we left the court, not once. The weight of everything still pressed against me. Camille's death, the Queen's warning, my father's surprising support. But in the silence, it was his thumb gently brushing over mine that calmed my swirling thoughts. By the time we reached the penthouse, exhaustion warred with adrenaline. My body ached, but my heart, it ached more for him. He unlocked the door and stepped aside.
Home.
he said, his voice a whisper only I was meant to hear. I stepped inside. The wards flared softly around us, then dimmed, accepting me again. Maybe they knew I wasn't leaving this time. Etan closed the door behind us, then turned. His eyes traced over the bruises Camille left, the shadows under my eyes, the stubborn set of my jaw.
You're not okay,
he said. I opened my mouth, closed it, then gave him the truth. Not yet, but I will be. He reached out, tucking a curl behind my ear.
Because you're here.
I nodded. Because I'm here. We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. He kissed me with the reverence of a promise and the heat of a vow. This time, when we undressed, it was with the knowledge we had all the time in the world to seek out skin and soul, desire and trust. Each touch was a whispered confession, each gasp a prayer. His fingertips traced the star-marked runes on my skin, leaving trails of fire in their wake. And when tears slipped from my eyes, they were born not of pain, but of a profound sense of belonging, of being seen, wholly and completely, and chosen just the same. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets and silence, our breaths sinking in a languid rhythm. Etan's arms wrapped around me, strong and sure, as if he could shield me from the world outside. They'll come for us, you know, I whispered, my voice barely louder than the rustle of sheets. Enemies on both sides trying to tear us down, the ashen thorns rising up to avenge one of their own. Etan's hand found my cheek, warm and steady, tipping my face until our eyes met. His gaze burned, fierce, tender, full of something wild and unwavering.
Let them try,
he said, his voice a low growl.
They can't destroy what we have, what we are.
I tucked closer, my body curving into his, breathing in the scent of him, spice and heat, dark magic threaded through with something that was only Etan. But if they try, I began. A slow, wicked smile curved his lips. He rolled on top of me in one fluid motion, caging me beneath him without weight, just heat and promise.
You're as bloodthirsty as I am,
he murmured, lips grazing mine.
Maybe that's why I can't let you go.
His mouth trailed to my throat, a kiss that promised both worship and ruin. One hand pinned mine above my head, the other tracing lazy, reverent lines down my side as he settled against me again, every inch of him a vow.
Let them come,
he whispered into my skin.
I dare them.
The Sinclair garden had been rewarded 3 times, with the safety of both vampire and fae in mind. No threats, no distractions, just the scent of wild lavender, enchanted night bloom, and the pulse of every person who mattered to me, seated beneath a canopy of charmed lights. Issa stood across from me in a deep emerald dress that shimmered like starlight had been woven into the fabric. Her hair was half up, pinned with small moonstones. The pendant, the one we'd recovered, the one she thought lost forever, rested against her chest, a symbol of our shared journey and the bonds we'd forged. The crowd was small, Scott in a navy suit, his expression a mix of solemnity and quiet pride. Eddie in his version of formal, leather jacket over black silk, his grin a beacon of unwavering support. A handful of fae nobles and a few vampire elders who'd come for show more than sentiment, but whose attendance spoke volumes about the change we were creating. But in the end, the trappings and traditions faded away. Because when Issa smiled up at me, her eyes alight with love and promise, nothing else mattered. The world could have crumbled around us, and I would have stood there, lost in her gaze forever. The priestess began the rite, her voice melodious and ancient, weaving a tapestry of words that spoke to the very heart of our union. Fae and vampire, bound not by duty or obligation, but by the most powerful force of all, love. We each spoke our truths, raw and unscripted, the words flowing from a place of pure authenticity. Issa's voice steady, her eyes shining with emotion. I was a ghost when I walked into that diner. You made me real again. You gave me a reason to fight, to hope, to believe in myself and in us. I took her hand, lifted it to my mouth, and kissed the place where her pulse fluttered. A promise, a devotion.
You awakened parts of me I thought long dead. You showed me that life is more than just survival, that love is the greatest strength of all.
The magic answered, quiet and golden, winding around us in twin threads of light and shadow, heat and frost, a manifestation of our essence, our bond. And then it was done. She was mine, and I was hers. Two souls forever entwined. Afterward, as music played and the others celebrated, Scott emerged from the shadows and approached, the weight of his past carved into his features. His eyes held the depth of unspeakable loss forged in the fires of grief. With every step, he carried the burden of his shattered world.
I'm ready to talk,
he said, voice heavy over the laughter. I tensed, bracing myself for whatever revelation was to come.
Tell us.
He looked at Issa, then at Eddie, then back at me. A flicker of gratitude, of shared understanding passing between us.
The ones who killed my wife, my sweet little girl, I know who they are. Issa's father told me, in gratitude for helping to save her life.
Eddie had received a moonstone-encrusted dagger, a treasure any werewolf would covet, but even he knew not to make a smart-ass quip about it. Scott's eyes didn't blaze, but I felt the fire anyway. The smoldering embers of a long-awaited reckoning.
I'm ready,
he said,
to hunt them down.
And just like that, our next chapter had begun. Thank you for listening to Broken Bond, part of the Broken series by Nikki Saxton. If their story spoke to your heart, considering watching the story unfold on the Romance Audiobook Love channel on YouTube, please show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing the channel with other romance lovers. Don't forget to click the bell to be notified of new audiobooks, ranging from paranormal sagas to grounded, emotional standalones. There will be new books every week. Keep listening for the first chapter of Broken Truth, Nikki Saxton's first novel, available on Amazon. Broken Truth. Chapter 1, Undercover. I could do this, I had to. The academy gates swallowed me into a river of uniforms laughter, shoving, the sour sweet musk of too many boys in one place. Friday meant no classes, only registration, and the whole courtyard pulsed with weekend energy. Relief I couldn't afford. My cap pressed down like an iron paw on my forehead, hiding every strand of auburn that might betray me. My ribs screamed beneath their bindings, a daily reminder that Ava Wintercrest was gone. Here, I was Aiden Blackwood, just another boy in a sea of them. At least that was the lie I prayed would hold. I shoved my trembling hands into my jacket pockets and joined the line that crawled toward the registration desk. Sweat prickled under my collar, trickling down my back. Each step was a countdown to my new life.
Next.
My turn. I slouched into the posture I'd practiced for weeks and lowered my voice to a gravelly hush.
Aiden Blackwood.
The administrator barely looked up as he tapped on his scry tablet tech my father viewed as frivolous and jerked his chin for me to move on. Relief scraped through me, thin but real. First test passed, 1,000 more to go. The moment I cleared the line, I collided with something unyielding. Arms, muscle, the scent of pine and storm. Strong hands caught me for a moment before letting go, clenching at his sides as if the contact had cost him something. I looked up, dazed straight into a storm. Gray eyes, no. Silver, sharp enough to cut bone. A flicker of something quick and electric passed behind them, and in that millisecond of time, he stripped me down to bone, exposing all the lies I'd told myself. The noise around us faded, leaving only the quick, hard flutter beneath my ribs. His cleft jaw was tense, his lips set in a terrifying scowl. That didn't matter, not with a face like that. Striking wasn't the word. Unfair, more like it. He leaned down, just enough that I could smell the faint, wild scent of pine and rain that clung to him.
Watch where you're going, pup.
He growled, every word curling around me like acrid smoke. My spine went rigid, but I held his gaze. Against my better judgment, I liked it. The danger, the pull of him. Too much. What was wrong with me? This guy was the enemy. Still, embarrassment mixed with something else. Something hot and reckless that prickled under my skin. I ignored my body's flutterings and mutterings and defaulted to my defiance mode, the one that had gotten me in so much trouble back home.
Yeah, won't happen again. And the name is Etan, not Pup. Etan Blackwood.
Those silver eyes of his locked onto mine, daring me to blink first. The muscle in his jaw twitched, a dam holding back a flood of words that would carve canyons if he let them loose. "Stellan, hey, Nightwind!" Someone called from the crowd. "Over here!" He let go, stepped back, turned away. Not a word spoken, but the rigid line of his shoulders was a silent threat, loud and clear. He wouldn't forget this, and he'd make sure I didn't either. My pulse hammered as I watched him disappear into the crowd of students, sweat trickling down my spine. Stellan Nightwind. The name clawed through me, familiar and bitter. He was the one. The golden boy alpha in waiting of the Black Moon Pack. The memory of that day stopped me in my tracks, my gut roiling at the finality in my father's voice. He stood at the window of his study, arms folded tight, eyes locked on something far beyond our walls. Gentleness wasn't something Father bothered with, even when my mother had been around to ease the rough edges. After she disappeared, whatever warmth he'd held for me vanished with her, leaving only coldness behind.
"Ava, this is your duty,"
he said, posture rigid as always when he talked to me.
"You will marry Nightwind's son. It's the only way to bring peace between our packs."
My voice shook and angry tears pricked my eyes.
Father, I don't want to be a Luna. I want to be the next Alpha. I've trained harder than anyone. Just give me a chance.
He turned.
"You're a girl. That's all you'll ever be."
He'd never needed to raise his voice. Coldness did the work for him.
"Our pack needs a real alpha, not a child playing at being strong. Stop humiliating yourself."
The way he saw me as invisible unless I was somehow failing him had torn up my insides. I'd run away to see what I could become, to prove, once and for all, that I could be more than...
Move! You're in the way.
I jumped aside, the sharp command yanking me back to the crowded courtyard. A burly guy hauling a cart of trunks glared at me. Laughter burst out around me, each snicker scraping against my raw nerves. Fueled by the fresh sting of memory, I forced my chin up and my shoulders back. I could feel their eyes on me, measuring me, hunting for the weakness my father had always seen. My thoughts shattered as a solid wall of bodies blocked my way. 4 boys stood shoulder to shoulder, uniforms crisp, stances wide, daring me to break through. I halted, muscles tightening, tension humming along my bones. The tallest flashed a grin, all teeth and no warmth. Brown curls floated around his head and his neck was thicker than my thigh. His scent was disaster from a mile away.
First day and you're already causing trouble?
His buddies snickered, eyes sliding over me like I was dirt under their shoes. The same porter who yelled at me to move walked by. He stuffed his hands in his overalls and hurried on as if he had an appointment with his maker. No help there, I guess?
Easy, Fenroy. Don't scare him off yet. Let's play with him a bit first.
Fenroy squared his shoulders, crowding closer until I smelled sour breath and the funk of ripe sweat. An enormous foot stomped down on mine, scuffing my loafer, grinding my toes beneath his weight. I bit my tongue to hold back a cry.
You really think you belong here? Think you are tough enough to survive?
I kept my ground, fists clenched so tight my fingers went numb. Fear buzzed in my veins, but I wouldn't let it show.
I'm here to earn my place, same as you.
Fenroy barked a laugh that shredded my nerves.
Big talk for someone built like a twig, but you barely make it a month, probably gone by next week.
Another boy with an oily voice smirked.
"I'll take that bet, easy money."
Their laughter cracked around me, but I stood to my full height, all 5'4" of it,
I wouldn't count on it.
Fenroy's eyes narrowed, a promise of pain glinting behind his sneer.
We'll see. Don't get comfortable, Runt.
For a moment, the challenge hung in the air. Then they peeled away, parting like a curtain, letting me through.
Welcome to the Academy. I'm sure we will run into each other again.
I hurried past, heart thudding hard in my chest. Each step was the equivalent of walking through the sucking mud flats behind our pack house. Once I was out of sight, I leaned against a wall, breath coming in shallow spurts that made my binding feel even tighter. My left toes thumped, a throbbing, insistent ache, almost as if they'd been stomped on by a boy twice my size, wearing steel-toed boots. Great. Not even lunchtime on my first day, and I've already made an enemy.
Win, don't back down.
Father always said. What he never mentioned was how exhausting it was being the one who never backed down. At 19, I was an unknown sliding into the second year of a 4-year academy. Smart enough to ace the placement tests, but already behind where it mattered. The other students moved in tight knots, their alliances long since carved in stone. I was the outsider. Story of my life. Keep moving. Don't let them smell the fear. Yet another delightful lesson from Father. Still, I forced myself to keep walking, making my way to the dormitory building, eyes on the move for more threats. One close call with that Fenroy idiot was enough for the day, thank you very much. Luckily, the hallway was quiet, and for the first time since stepping onto academy grounds, I felt a tiny bit of peace. Footsteps echoed behind me. I turned, pulse jumping like a startled rabbit. I half expected another group of wannabe alphas, but it was just a tall, shadowy figure at the end of the hall. I couldn't make out a face in the shadows, but the last thing I needed was another confrontation where my bindings might slip, or my hair would tumble from my cap. My legs were moving before my brain even finished the thought, carrying me away from whoever was watching me from the darkness. I hurried to my room, fingers fumbling with the key like I'd never used one before. Inside. Well, it was better than the cell my father sometimes had locked me in. Bare walls, a single bed, and a wardrobe that had seen better decades. There were outlets for Strom, but I wouldn't be using them. I didn't have any tech to plug into the sockets. I slumped down, yanking off my cap, hair spilling free in a cascade of relief. My whole body shook, every muscle wired and spent. This charade was going to kill me before any of these boys got the chance. You made it this far. You can do this. You have to. The alternative was returning home, tail between my legs, hearing my father say,
I told you so.
About 1,000 times before marrying me off to cement some pack alliance. A harsh rap shattered the quiet, yanking me to my feet. My heart battered at my ribs as I clawed my hair under the cap, fingers trembling in panic. If anyone saw the real me, the me without the bindings and the baggy clothes and the what I thought could pass for a boy swagger, it was game over. Everything I'd sacrificed, all the planning, the fake documents I'd nearly gotten my ass killed to obtain. I could kiss it all goodbye.
Who is it?
I called out, trying to sound bored instead of like I was about to puke from fear. Nothing, just silence. My pulse thundered in my ears. Did someone already know? Was this whole insane plan destined to crash and burn from day one?